to everyone for your patience. We're kind of doing double duty tech today. We're on WebEx and the microphone's in here at the same time.
Oh. Moderator, can you hear me now?
Yes, we can hear you fine.
Please.
Calling roll again. Tate.
Here.
Rogers.
Here.
Kasuga.
Here.
Cervantes. Carbsheets.
Here.
Boo.
Aye.
Nystrom.
Here.
Quorum is established.
Thank you so much. Welcome to everyone. I have a few housekeeping items. The restroom is out this door and to the left. And everyone on the board will be on computers today. Usually it's just our board materials, but now we're webcasting ourselves, so double duty. We will be referencing our computers all day today throughout the meeting. Parking validation at a reduced price is available for everyone in attendance today. If you please go see Ms. Whitney, can you? Yes, so at a break, please go see her for that validation. And, Mr. Polk, can you please let us know about our CPD credit today?
Yeah, push. There we go. Good morning. Attending today's in-person board meeting provides you with CPD credit under Category 1, attendance at a California Board of Psychology meeting. Since today's meeting is designated as an in-person meeting, CPD credit will not be credited for viewing the meeting through the WebEx, as the WebEx is for streaming purposes only, and there is no option to interact during the public comment periods. For attendees who are in person with us today, the sign-in sheet provided will be the board's record of your attendance. Please sign in and out as needed for today's meeting. For your CPD records, please notate today's date as August 22nd, 2025, and note that we are here for the board meeting. Please maintain this record, as certificates of attendance will not be provided for attending today's meeting. At the end of today's meeting, I will announce how many hours will be credited for attending the full meeting. If you have to leave before the meeting has adjourned, please sign out and you'll be credited for the time that you have attended. Again, at the end of today's meeting, I will announce how many hours will be credited for attending the full meeting in person. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Polk. We're about to jump into Dr. Rogers' mindfulness exercise, which will help us prepare for the busy agenda today. Dr. Rogers, please.
Thank you so much, Dr. Tate. Good morning, everyone. I'm glad to be with you all today. And as always, so glad to be able to offer a mindfulness practice before we get started. So if you would like to participate, feel free to do so. And if this does not feel supportive for you, feel free to opt out. We are creating space for us to take good care of ourselves today. We do have a full agenda ahead, and I know it's helpful for me to go into this feeling grounded and centered. So I extend the invitation to you if you'd like to participate. So if you would like to participate, find a position that is comfortable for you. And I will set my timer here. Closing the eyes if that feels supportive in this moment. And if that doesn't feel accessible or supportive for you, you can just gently lower the gaze. And for the next few moments, we will center our attention on the breath. There were lots of things that brought us to this moment, lots of things we had to tend to, and there are lots of things awaiting us on the other side of this board meeting today. But for this moment, see if it's possible to bring the mind, body, and heart into this room, and allowing yourself to settle. Noticing your feet on the earth. Noticing the ways in which your body comes into contact with the chair that you're sitting on. Maybe even feeling the clothes that you're wearing that contact your skin. And centering your attention on the stillness of the body and the movement of the breath. Maybe focusing your attention on the inhale and how the chest lifts and expands and rises on the inhale, and how it falls away on the exhale. And we're not trying to change the quality of the breath or the speed of the breath, just following the natural rhythm of the breath as the breath breathes us. And if there are any thoughts that come to mind, we can simply notice them and let them pass. If there are any sensations that you notice, you can acknowledge those. And even if there are emotions that are present this morning, you can welcome them in, not cling to them and not push them away. We can simply let them be. Because the practice of mindfulness is about awareness of this moment as it is, and welcoming it with compassion, acceptance, and care. And noticing how the body feels as we take a few moments to settle in and get ready for the business of the day. Remembering that you can always return to the practice of mindfulness through the breath. It brings you back to the present moment every time. And as we begin to bring this practice to a close, we return our attention to the stillness of the body and the movement of the breath. And when you're ready, you can gently open your eyes and bring your attention back into the room. Thank you, everyone, for your practice.
Thank you, Dr. Rogers, for getting us into the perfect mindset for today with your incredibly soothing voice. Any board comment on the President's welcome this morning? Any public comment for the President's welcome? Thank you. We're moving on to agenda item number 3. This is public comment for items not on the agenda. The board may not discuss or take action on any matter raised during this public comment section, except to decide whether to place the matter on the agenda of a future meeting. Before I invite speakers to come forward for public comment, I would ask individuals making comments to not discuss the specifics, including names, as to pending complaints, pending licensing applications, or pending disciplinary actions that may come before the board for decision. This refers to current complaints and possible future complaints. Such discussions are considered ex parte communications, as they can provide information to the members that is outside of the record and violation of the Administrative Procedure Act. While there may be a desire to engage in further discussion, the board may not discuss or take action. Although this may also give the impression we're not being responsive, these procedures are critical to ensure the compliance with the Open Meetings Act and to avoid compromising the speaker's goals or the board's mission. If there is a speaker before you who expresses thoughts that are extremely similar to yours, please feel free to verbally agree with previous speakers instead of repeating the exact same comment. Can you please raise your hand if you are interested in making a comment during this agenda item? Thank you. Each speaker will have 2 minutes. And if you have a comment on this item, can you please come forward and sit at a table and turn on the microphone? Ma'am.
Now it's on.
Yes.
Thank you. I am Patricia Lindquist. I have been a sole practitioner psychologist for 45 years. And as a senior psychologist, I have had the opportunity to work with colleagues, some of whom have been sanctioned by the board. Over time, I have noticed a trend. And the trend contains both a hazard and a fear. The hazard is working with dysregulated patients, such as cluster B personality disordered patients, can result in a report to the board. An angry patient taking a well-timed challenge from a therapist can certainly retaliate by reporting the therapist to the board. That's the hazard, and it's part of doing work with that kind of person. The fear is what happens when a report is made. I have noticed over time that probationary periods and disciplinary actions last longer and longer, creating more financial problems for the therapist and bringing into question how long does it take to adjudicate, especially minor administrative errors. An example is overlooking the date for relicensing, or another example is not getting a advisory report in a timely way. Over time, what I have noticed is less and less inclination to work with dysregulated patients. Pardon me?
Your 2 minutes is up, Dr. Lindquist.
Thank you. I didn't get to my most important part, but I appreciate the time. Thank you for listening to me.
Thank you very much. Is there any other person who would like to make a comment on agenda item number 3? Please come forward and turn on the microphone, please. Thank you. Agenda item number 4 is the update, presentation, and discussion on the California Psychology Internship Council. Dr. Schaefer, please.
I'm Dr. Melody Schaefer. I serve as the chair of the California Psychology Internship Council Board. And CAPIC would like to thank the Board of Psychology as well as the board staff for inviting us to present on the Sunset Plan for CAPIC. I'll be going over briefly the background history of CAPIC and then describing what we are doing in terms of sunsetting and what that process will look like. And please feel free to break in with any questions along the way. Next slide, please. So overall, this gives you a sense of what the CAPIC mission has been: to promote excellence in professional psychology training and mental health services. And we have worked over the years collaboratively with all the stakeholders, which include the psychological doctoral programs, as well as a large variety of training sites across the state of California. And we've served as leaderships in the development and centralization of internship training in California. We promote standards and innovation in training to provide clinical services to a diverse community. And I would say that the majority of our training sites over the years have focused on serving underserved and underrepresented populations and unique training experiences to students that would like to stay local and give back to the communities from which they have grown and raised their families and lived, and provide opportunities for individuals that financially do not have the means to pick up and leave support and such. We've developed ethical internship training environments that are sensitive to diversity and culture, which is one of our strengths, or has been, I should say, one of our strengths. Next slide, please. So how did CAPIC begin? Well, there was a growth in the need for internships because of the growth of doctoral programs in psychology, and we're dating back to 1991 at its insemination. This was especially true in the San Fernando Bay area, and students preferred working locally, and so these needs was one of the factors that influenced the development of CAPIC. Also, the impact of reduced tax revenue from the 1978 passage of Proposition 13, APA and accredited other state-funded agencies and internships were disrupted by funding cuts, which meant that students lost their stipend at the sites that they were at. Also, there was the proposed 1991 BOP changes in supervision that came about with the mandate for 3 years rule for having experience before one could be a supervisor. Well, when this came out, there were all these supervisors that currently were supervising at these sites, yet may not have met that 3-year rule yet because it came out. So that brought up issues too of a need for intervention and to keep things rolling for the students. And then the popularity of the halftime internship training model. As you probably know with APIC and APA, historically and still most of their internships are full-time. Again, this presented a challenge for people that have financial needs, familial needs, etc., and needing something more local. Next slide, please. So for a historical timeline, 1991, the agency or the institution of CAPIC was founded in Berkeley. It was a compilation of doctoral programs in the area, in the Bay Area, a variety of training sites that already existed, counseling centers and such. The CAPIC internships in 2001 were recognized by the California Board of Psychology, that's BPC 2911 and BOP Article 3, Section 1387. CAPIC in 2005 hosted a national conference on the halftime internship model in Berkeley, which psychologists from all over the US came to and kind of pushed it even more forward as a viable opportunity. In 2007, the Board of Psychology approached us. I was, I believe, chair at that time as well, and asked if we would be willing to start postdoctoral fellowships through CAPIC, and that would offload some of the burden that came to the board here to vet these types of opportunities, which we did and presented a regulated way in which that happened, which was approved by the board and brought it into, as you see, CA BOP BPC 2911 and BOP Article 3, Section 1387. In 2008, we advocated for and were awarded the California DMH MHSA Mental Health Services Act. That's based on Steinberg's tax on millionaires with the 1% rule. And we were granted a 3-year grant, which was renewed in 2011, 2016. What that meant is I went to MHSA that had cut out psychologists completely and were only giving these stipends to MFTs and to social workers. And this had been going on for years. And so I met with the head of that program and he agreed to do so because it was, to me, a restriction and others a restriction of trade issue. And there was a lack of equity. If CAPIC would take the majority of the funds, but because that they had dispersed it to 3 different groups for the other 2, they had to give a couple of other programs that train psychologists the money. But we took the lion's share, and over that time, it accumulated to $8 million of stipend money for our doctoral students across the state through 2008 to 2016, actually a little later than 2016 when it ended about 2018. And that was a significant boost to the students that received $20,000 each for working in DMH and other publicly funded, non-privately funded organizations. In 2010, CAPIC developed a QA process where every 3 years we had a rolling site visit, which interestingly enough is not done at through APIC and APA, but we thought that was necessary. In 2010, we started finally going into the 20th century or 21st century with the online match. Everything was paper and pencil before then, so to speak. 2025, we've celebrated now 34 years of service and training and advocacy. Next slide, please. In terms of the academic programs, over the years, we've had over 40 doctoral academic programs within the state that are all regionally accredited institutions. Approximately 54% of those have been APA accredited, 77% were PsyD programs, and 23% were PhDs. We had 4 out-of-state doctoral programs that were members. They wanted to be associate members to support CAPIC. And at 1.5 inactive academic programs still were affiliated with us. Next slide, please. This is data that we collected between 91 when we started in 2016. And from that data to extrapolate, the total numbers of member internships were over actually 250, but gives you some sense of how many training institutions across the state there were involved over the years. The peak years of numbers of internships occurred between 2002 and 2006. We were up to over 800 slots, you could say, between, in other words, between all those 250 sites, each one has X amount of positions for interns. So it went from 821 to, in 2016, 717. And since then, actually since 2006, I'm sorry, there's been a slow degradation of opportunities. Why, you might ask, that happened? Well, as you may know, the APA put, I don't want to say constrictions, but put pressure through the Commission on Accreditation on doctoral programs or APA accredited to give robust rationalizations, let's say, to why any of their students were a non-APA internship. The reality of these sites not becoming APA internships was based on the fact that these are funded with constricted funds. They're community-based. In the community, sites for providing mental health services to needy populations. They didn't have and continue not to have the fiscal means of what it takes to become an APA accredited site, which, if you know anything about that, you know that can be quite hefty, nor the people power to write the kind of material necessary to get it through. I actually invited the COA to come to Southern Cal and Northern Cal just to educate all our sites on the possibility, but the wall is hit with the financial issue. The balance of full-time and half-time internships is reversed. In 2010, the majority of the positions were half-time, and since 2011, students really wanted full-time positions, probably to facilitate getting through their doctoral program, I would imagine, since the heft of the fiscal burden that they hold is such. Next slide, please. Some fast facts: over 34 years, over 12,000 doctoral students have completed CAPIC internships and postdoc fellowships. Of course, the lion's share of that are the CAPIC pre-doc internships. These students attended 39 regionally accredited sites, as I already stated, and you see the statistics there. They completed internships at about 275 agencies total. They completed over 6 million hours of public health service delivered over 75,000 diverse and often underserved clients, which I think is a testimony to the good work CAPIC did, and a thank you to the board for allowing CAPIC to come into fruition and be able to provide these services to our community of consumers. Next slide, please. So why are we sunsetting, one might ask? The number of doctoral students applying for CAPIC sites has significantly diminished over years, primarily because of the APA programs, which have, under pressure, have had their students mandated them actually to go to APA sites. And from the numbers that would come normally to CAPIC, it dwindled down to 0 to 1, if even that towards the end. We pushed forward as a board to continue CAPIC as long as we could out of wanting to support all the non-APA regionally accredited doctoral programs, which have no other place to go to get an internship for their students. And that is important because when you talk about portability and taking your license to another state, as we know from the Model Licensing Act and ASPPB and APA promulgating that perspective, many of the boards of psychology across the country have changed their regulations to be that one has to have a formal internship and using the COA vernacular of graded, sequential, and cumulative. So what is left for those sites is, as we know, psychological associate positions, but those are not structured typically in a way that is graded, sequential, and cumulative and has all the bells and whistles of what the COA expects in an internship. So when one goes to another site with their degree, they are going to be having challenges with trying to get licensure in other states. That's already happened even with folks I've run across have contacted me and said, I'm having trouble in this state or that state for these reasons. So from that, we're concerned. So we can't support ethically to continue because we have all these sites still. They want to support KPIC. They base getting interns on calculating how much they can provide in terms of service. Yet when it's time to match, what's happened is because of dwindling numbers, they end up with no one, and that's not fair to them. So we thought finally, because we went from this current year of placement, there's only 21 students placed. That's cut in half again from the year before. And now this current year that's coming this fall, there's only 6 students. There's only 6 students because we decided to make sure that we took care of the students that were already in the system. So this last year that's ending this month, those that were in their first half-time internship year, they still need a second half-time internship year to get those 1,500 or however many hours they're going to get pre-doctorally. So we made sure that we placed them, but we didn't take any new students since the sunset plan is to close in August of next year formally, although the board will continue for another year for all the loose ends and such. Next slide, please. So you see the timeline here, which I just mentioned. The current internship year that's starting this fall will end in fall of 2026. And KPIC match, as I stated, was only open to those with a second half-time year that they needed. And the last internship placement will end. Well, that's reiterating the same, so we can move forward if you change that. And we will be open, well, we won't be open, but the website will be maintained for several years after the training year. We don't have an executive director. We don't have any staff. I, as the chair, am doing most of the work. It's not a paid position, of course. I changed the address to be at a post office box where my office is, my clinic, the other Dr. Schaefer and myself have been running, so that we at least have a post office where if people want to contact KPIC, it'll be there forever long I'm on planet Earth, hopefully, and then we'll be able to respond. Here's what probably needs to be understood that's important. KPIC internships it's a match organization. It has been a match organization, putting together quality sites, maintaining and such, and doing the match. But students over the years, that once they graduate, once they become licensed, there's going to be opportunities, and they've contacted us since then, where they want verification that they went to a KPIC site. That's not what we're responsible for. The internship site is mandated and attests that they give, just like at APA and APIC, a document showing that they are certified that they completed KPIC site in the year that they graduated. They send their documentation to the Board of Psychology. So if they want that sent, as you know, to someplace, like when I joined the National Register, I didn't go to KPIC, I went to APIC, APA site. So, but same thing, the Board of Psychology sends the VOE to verify where you went. There's that, and their academic program also has where they went and when they completed their internship training. So that's the method by which they need to verify. We have electronic since 2010, and we went electronic. We do have from InternFit documents showing which sites were KPIC active during that time. Prior to that time, from when they were kind of kicking it old school and we didn't have an electronic method, that data is a mushmash from moving from the Wright Institute to JFK to Alliant and all over the place with boxes of data that were lost and transitioned from ED to ED to ED. So I think that's important for the board perhaps to know, because if you have students that contact you wanting the verification, or if you're wanting the verification, you know that those sites from 2010 on, you can always check on the website, because we're loading those up now since internship put them together. The students themselves, or now licensed psychologists, will have that information on the site for them, so they know that here are your options for how you need to do that. Just like finishing an APA internship, I have my certificate, and my the document rests also with the academic program for which I graduated, and of course with the BOP. Next slide, please. So I already kind of covered this. Our concern is with psychological associates. It's not so with postdoc hours, as we know, but with pre-doc hours, because of the mandates for graded sequential and cumulative training that's organized in a fashion that APA and the BOPs of other states would expect, this is the challenge, which I would assume the BOP is probably concerned about, perhaps, because then how do you manage that? Certainly a psychological associate position is one thing in working in private practice, but it brings into question, with so few of those psych associate positions that exist, and with the downregulation of Medi-Cal funds at a national level, which as we see is hitting states now. I sent out an article that just a report that came out from Oregon, our neighbor, for instance, which you may know of, what happened there, that they, because of the downregulation of the funds with Medi-Cal, they have cut out their plan is to cut out 25% of their licensed professionals around their panels. And they're down regulating the amount and the purpose for which they will provide mental health services. And they will no longer give reimbursement to non-panel providers as well. So, one thing leads to another, rolling thunder. And so when one state does something like that, I think maybe not, but if history serves us right, I think we're going to see that elsewhere. And why is that a concern? Well, Medi-Cal, through insurance programs, some of them have supported psychological associates in private practice because they have created a reimbursement model if the psychologist is licensed supervising them and is within their organization. So with this downregulation, this will also, my hunches, logically, will impact the number of psychological associate positions. So this may be a brewing position, specifically, or I shouldn't say specifically, but mostly a concern for these regionally accredited non-APA programs within California, which we have still many trying to survive and figure out what to do. Next slide, please. And this is really not apropos for here, but these are all the things. Of course, the BOP understands that sites, educational programs need to understand what we know at the BOP, but they may not be used to having to think this way for their pre-doc interns because they're used to placing them at CAPIC. But if CAPIC doesn't exist, they need to understand, of course, and we've shared this with them, but they need to be educated probably more than once about all these things that they have to be looking for and making sure go on and educating their students and making sure that if they're going to place someone as a psychological associate through any way that they can set up memorandums of understanding and such, to make sure that these things are in place and that whoever is a supervisor and director of that clinical program understands the necessity of this. So the Board of Psychology, when the student sends in their hours, that it meets the standards of what the board expects. Next slide, please. That's it. Okay. So any questions or comments from the board, please? If there aren't none, then you can let me know.
You might have said this, but I'm just wondering, to what did you attribute the reduced number of applicants for these internships?
APA's position that the academic programs are APA accredited had to validate even one student that they send to a non-APA site. They have to have a presentation as to why they didn't get them to an APA site. What has unfortunately happened is if a student doesn't get an APA site, many of these doctoral programs are APA. The fear of losing their APA accreditation, of course, they have a reason to be concerned, right? Have held students back to wait another year to go into the next match if they didn't make it through the match or the clearinghouse, et cetera, of APIC. So this creates a problem for students of having a protracted educational experience trying to get to licensure because they're still waiting to fit the bill that's expected, unfortunately. So over time, because of that, we fought it at one point. So I shouldn't say fought it, but I wrote a letter to the COA, and Susan Caslow was head at the time, and Cynthia Millar was there, if you know who they are. And I wrote a letter saying you have the 75% rule. This is before they took it up above 75, and gave all the rationalizations why this can be a negative outcome for students and such. They backed off from the 75, they went back to 50, then it went back up again, and that was just, you need to get APA sites, you have to have APA placements. So what we saw over that time is the continual degradation of the number of students. I sat in on site visits from the APA to a couple of academic institutions because they had to rationalize why a student or two. Of course, I came prepared because I had all the what you at the board that KPIC has given you, that I took the criteria for the sites. I made it match what we expected from them to be exactly what the COA had. So it was a mirror copy, with the exception, in fact, we even had more. We had more on diversity and such. And now, of course, that's all in another realm being dealt with. The only difference was that we didn't mandate these stipends to be at the level of what they did, or even mandate a stipend. Why? Because families that wanted part-time and had other things and could afford it would go to a site that couldn't afford to give a stipend, but gave unique training experiences with special populations and unique experiences that were in the neighborhood or the community from which they lived or for which they wanted to work and stay. So it was up to the students. We had many years where we had stipends, even 30, 40,000, that students didn't take the internship sites that had those stipends, but they instead would take some of the ones that had no stipend because that was the place that was important to them. So their choice and giving them choices was always important. But that's why, if that makes sense, why the downturn.
Any other board comment for Dr. Schaefer? I just want to thank you for your dedication and commitment to the profession.
Thank you.
For decades.
Thank you. It's been an honor to have been with KPIC since I think I was started in 2002. And an honor to be a part of an organization that's been so committed to work with the communities that they do and to help students in the way they have. And thank you so much to the board for all the support you gave KPIC.
Thank you. Mr. Fu, did you have a question?
I have wow. What a microphone. Actually, it's a question for you, Madam President, which is, I wonder if the information that was shared today that particularly might be relevant for practitioners who have gone through KPIC internships, perhaps something in the journal would be helpful, just for awareness purposes, that the website is being maintained.
Are you referencing perhaps a journal article?
A journal article
written by Dr. Schaefer?
Oh, written by Dr. Schaefer, exactly, not by me. And so that I just think it'll be helpful we know that our journal is the most read item of all the things that is put out, which may not be saying a lot depending on how you measure these things. But
I read it.
And it might be helpful just for awareness that the website will still be maintained for some period of time if you're looking for your verification of experience forms, et cetera, for sharing that for folks.
I'm sure that Dr. Schaefer would be happy to write us a little article on what students can expect from the website or the PO box.
It's kind of like the military when they say we need a volunteer and everyone steps back and you don't see that you're still there.
Right.
I appreciate
that. I've said your name 3 times, so it's happening. So.
Yeah. No, I'd be delighted to, of course. I'm only using a little humor in a sad moment, but I'd be delighted to. And I actually want to reach out to CPA as well. Not everyone, unfortunately, reads the BOP journal, and not everyone reads the CPA psychologist, but to put something out there as well of what we stated and presented today. So the word is out there in a multitude of ways. In addition to, they put together letters that went out to all the academic programs more than once and the training sites. But what we know about education is repeat, repeat, repeat. And hopefully that will help.
Perfect. Thank you.
Thank you.
Dr. Kasuga.
I just wanted to do a quick comment that I appreciate the presentation, and I just wanted to share that it's really a bittersweet for me because I actually was a KPIC trainee, and I owe my whole career, whatever I learned from my training from KPIC is actually what I do now as a psychologist, and it's such a unique experience for pre-doc intern to have. And yeah, I'm just really grateful for the KPIC program.
Thank you. I appreciate that, truly. Yeah, we've had tears at our board meetings. And we 10 years ago we had board members want to leave because they wanted to sunset it then, and why are we still in operation? But then these other academic programs that were part of the board and supporting it you can say, why don't we all just go home? But we're stuck with nowhere else to go. It's very sad, how it's impacted them. So all you can do is do your best. And thank you for saying what you said. I appreciate that. I'm glad they had meaning for you.
I'd like to open this item up for public comment. If you have a comment regarding this KPIC presentation, can you please come forward and have a seat and turn on your microphone? I see no comment. Thank you again, Dr. Schaefer.
My pleasure. Thank you all very much.
And before we move on to agenda item number 5, I just wanted to mention, I forgot, during the public comment period, there were public comment received through email, and the board members have reviewed that. So thank you. Moving on to item number 5, this is discussion and possible approval of the board meeting minutes from May 9th, 2025. I'm opening up for board comment.
Move to adopt the minutes with any technical amendments.
I second.
Thank you. Any other board comment? I'd like to open this item up for public comment. If you have a comment regarding the possible approval of the board meeting minutes from May 9th, 2025, please come forward, have a seat, and turn on the microphone. Thank you. Coming back to the board, Ms. Whitney, can you please call the roll?
Tate,
Aye.
Rogers,
Aye.
Suga,
Aye.
Cervantes, Hardsheets,
Aye.
Boo,
Aye.
Nystrom. Aye. Thank you. Motion passes.
Thank you so much, Ms. Whitney.
Rascate.
Oh,
Sorry.
oh,
Rascate.
Aye.
Thank you. Motion passes.
now the motion passes. Thank you so much. Item number 6 is the president's report. And I would just like to say the meeting calendar for 2025 has committee meeting schedule dates, and our next full board meeting will be in November, and that will be in Riverside. Any board comment about the meeting calendar? Any public comment regarding our meeting calendar? Thank you. Moving on to agenda item number 7, this is the executive officer's report. Mr. Burke, please.
Thank you, Dr. Tate. My name is John Burke. I'm the Executive Officer of the Board of Psychology. The initial portion is a staffing update. We currently have 1 licensed board member vacancy. That is an appointee of the governor. The enforcement unit currently has a vacant manager position and an enforcement analyst position. There are also 2 analysts who are on leave. One will be returning in September, the other returning in June, hopefully. The Central Services Unit has filled its board liaison position. The new board liaison started August the 18th, and we welcome Tram Fung to the board. Licensing is currently fully staffed. Outreach, board staff member Troy Polk, our CPD, Continuing Professional Development and Renewals Coordinator, will attend the CPA annual convention in Long Beach in September, and he'll be staffing up a board booth and be able to answer any questions people have. And the ASPPB annual convention is in October 22nd to 26th. It's in St. Louis, Missouri. The board hopes to send someone in person, probably myself. But in a bit of good news, they announced this week that the board, the business portion of that meeting, where jurisdictions will be able to vote on the bylaws, That will be virtual. So regardless of whether there's out-of-state travel approved, California will be able to have its say on that. So I'm very happy they've done that. Our newsletter will be coming out in the fall, so it's pending, and we're still harvesting articles for that, as you just witnessed. And the final item is communications between the California Board of Psychology and ASPPB. We are a member of ASPPB, but we are not. We don't run them. We don't develop the exam. They develop the exam. We ensure through DCA's Office of Professional Examination Services that the exam complies with California law. Our primary role when it comes to the exam is determining eligibility for applicants. So I just wanted to put that out there just to try and make it clearer what our relationship is with ASPPB. We are a member. We are one of 66 jurisdictions who are a member, but we don't have a controlling stake in them or anything like that. So in terms of communications with them and other jurisdictions, I attended the BARC meeting. That's the Board Administrator and Registrar Committee. That was on Tuesday, and it's really an opportunity to people give jurisdictional updates. They talked about the bylaws and the upcoming annual meeting. That was all that was discussed there. There were no votes or anything. The examination did not come up. I did have a meeting in February with my counterpart in Texas, merely to get some background, some history on the development of EPPP2, Texas's opposition, the FTC lawsuit. It was really just information gathering, and I talked to other administrators, EOs from various other states from time to time on a whole range of issues, but Texas is the only one I've spoken to about the EPPP. And after our last licensing committee meeting, I had a long talk with the executive director of ASPPB, talking administrator to administrator. Specifically, she had some questions about the letter that the board sent after the May board meeting, and that is in the materials. That was discussed at the last meeting. She wanted to understand a bit more about how regulations and legislation works in California, timelines, administrative timelines, and concerns. But I just really spoke to the letter that the board had approved. That concludes the EO update.
Thank you, Mr. Burke. Any board comment on the EO update? Thank you. Any public comment on the EO update? Please come forward and have a seat and turn on the microphone. Thank you very much. The next item is the DCA update. And you're taking it. Okay. Go ahead, Mr. Burke.
Yes, I'm just providing a brief update on behalf of DCA. I'll just give some highlights. So the governor's reorganization plan was approved. So we're going to become part of a new business and consumer services agency. That's going to be effective July 1, 2026. The hybrid telework transition that was announced on March 3rd was deferred. So for a year. So rather than coming in 4 days a week, staff come in 2 or more days a week. There are some travel updates about just because of the overall budget situation in California, out-of-state travel requests now have a very high threshold to be approved. It must be a central state business, and we have to give 8 weeks of notice to the budget office prior for that to be approved. Also, the annual report is nearing its completion. It's something that all boards have to compile various data, a narrative on sort of what we've done, and that's a report that DCA and all boards have to give to the legislature every single year. And that's almost complete. So that's the DCA update.
Thank you. I keep forgetting to turn on my video. Any board comment on the DCA update? The document is in the meeting materials. Any public comment for the DCA update item? Oh, please come forward, Dr. Schaefer.
I believe this falls under the rubric of the DCA, where the DCA had come a couple of times to make a presentation on the monies that were collected from the Board of Psychology to support psychologists and to give certain grants to. I don't know if you recall that, but one of the things that concerned me, and I don't see a specific agenda, and there may not be one coming forward, is when they came to give the presentation and give the data, they did not differentiate between educational psychologists who report to the BBS and clinical psychologists. And when asked about it, they could not differentiate that at that time. And I was on the last webinar that when they came and presented again, and they didn't speak to it. So I'm just wondering if the board is aware of that when it happened, and whether there's been a movement on DCA to truly ferret out the monies that we all as psychologists through, our dues, the portion that goes into that kitty to help support the financial support of psychologists, whether they've delineated it so we make sure our funds go to psychologists vis-a-vis the Board of Psychology and not educational psychologists vis-a-vis BBS. If this makes sense how I'm saying it, I'm sorry if it seems convoluted.
I think you're referring to the HCI presentation,
Mhm.
which is not DCA, but they do a presentation to us typically once every year. Yeah.
Is that the one?
Oh, we did have them in Berkeley. No.
Okay.
Yes. Okay. But yes, we can ask them to dig deeper next year for their presentation. But I do recall exactly what you're saying.
Are those the funds from HCAI that are the funds from our dues that go into, that pot of money?
That is correct.
Yeah, that is the one that when it was brought up to them at the time, they said, gee, we really don't know. We think, and then finally they came up with a number, and it turned out there's educational psychologists and the data they presented. But that's one thing. Is the money represented that way too? Which I would think that we would all want to know. But thank you.
Thank you. I recall that as well. So in our future presentation, we can ask specifically about that data. Thank you. Any other public comment for this item? Moving on to the enforcement report. Mr. Burke.
Thank you. So the enforcement materials can be found in the combined meeting packet, page 45 to 59. Since July 1st, 2025, the board has received 113 complaints. All complaints received are opened and assigned to an enforcement analyst. The enforcement unit currently has vacancies, as I spoke about during my EO report. In terms of citations, we've issued one enforcement citation. Citation and fines are issued for minor violations. Since July 1st, 2025, the board has referred 4 cases to the Office of the Attorney General for formal discipline. And our staff are currently monitoring 22 probationers. Of those, 1 is out of compliance and 10 are in a tolling status. Being out of compliance can result in a citation and fine or further disciplinary action through the Attorney General. And then, as I mentioned, there is an overview of how we're doing on our performance measures, as well as an overview of enforcement activity data, which is all in the materials.
Thank you, Mr. Burke. Any board comment regarding the enforcement? Mr. Fu, please.
Thanks. Mr. Burke, so I just wanted to pick up on the public comment from Dr. Lundquist earlier with regard to some of the anecdotal trends that she was witnessing. And could you help me understand when it came to administrative items such as not renewing in a timely manner, the way that Dr. Lundquist presented? Would you share what is the typical result of these administrative errors?
Certainly, thank you. An administrative error such as forgetting to renew in a timely manner would typically result in a citation or fine, as it wouldn't probably be considered a disciplinary action. In cases where there is a pattern of behavior or where there has been a significant amount of time lapsed between expiration and renewal, and where patients continue to be seen, this may result in disciplinary action.
And I always have to remind myself of this too, which is we have two categories. So the administrative citations are actually not considered disciplinary actions. And I was reminded of this because actually in our spring journal talked about the difference between administrative citations and disciplinary actions, which includes surrender or a revocation with probation terms. So that was just a helpful reminder for me that not renewing your license in a timely manner that results in a citation isn't considered a disciplinary matter. This follow-up question I had, because it is concerning to me when I hear that people are being put on probation for forgetting to renew their license, especially if it's a day or two. That seems extreme to me, and I just want to clarify. In the cases where we have imposed probation for someone who hasn't renewed their license, has that happened recently, and what does that typically look like?
I don't believe it's happened recently. After looking at the probationary log, disciplinary action has not been taken against a licensee who failed to renew on time in at least the last 2 years. Imposing probation in such a case would only happen in a very egregious situation, and probably typically no more than 3 years. The egregious situation could be continuing to practice with an expired license, so you're not licensed for a period probably greater than 6 months. That could generate disciplinary action, and that could be a 1 to 3 probationary period. But yeah.
And one final question. I live in Los Angeles, and I see many people continuing to be affected by the fires in the Palisades and Altadena, and there are a lot of reasons why. And as a person who might have survived those fires, that you may forget to turn in your renewal. And I'm curious, from your perspective, how does the board take into consideration such awful, tragic situations when it comes to, not turning in paperwork? So when you're dealing with loss.
Certainly, in those instances where people, as per the governor's executive order, are from affected zip codes, and even not necessarily the affected zip code, there's very good reasons why you may not have one of those zip codes but have been impacted. Maybe your address of record wasn't in one of those zip codes, but all of your clients live there. Or in such cases, we take each one as it comes, and we do all that we can. In such instances, especially just after the fires, people were reaching out, asking about renewal deferrals and things like that. And in that case, we've worked with them and just tried to help in any way we can. And that includes for CPD audits, anything like that.
And to be clear, in those situations, we have not issued any citations.
No, we have not.
Yeah. Thank you so much for that.
Thank you for your questions, Mr. Fu. Any other board comment? Any public comment regarding the enforcement report? Please come forward and have a seat. Thank you so much. Agenda item number 10 is the budget report. Ms. Macia.
Good morning. Okay, so the budget report is a hand carry item, and all the materials are attached to the memo. This report provides the current projections based on the fiscal month, which is attachment 1 for fiscal month 12th, totals for the 2024-2025 fiscal year. The board was projected to collect 9.314 million in fiscal year 2024-2025. As of June 2025, the board collected 9.991 million in revenue. And for the fiscal year 2024-2025, the board budgeted expenditures were 7.831 million, and currently the board has expended 7.284 million, leaving a balance of approximately 546,000. Any questions?
Any board questions? Any public comment regarding the budget report? Please come forward and have a seat. Thank you, Ms. Mencia.
Thank you.
Agenda item number 11. This is the licensure committee report in consideration of committee recommendations. Dr. Harb Sheets.
You? I think the camera's on. Yeah. Ms. Chung, could you please start us off with the licensure report?
Absolutely. Thank you, Dr. Harpsheets. Good morning, board members. As of July 30th, we have 23,615 licensed psychologists, 1,805 registered psychological associates, 108 registered psychological testing technicians, 73 research psychoanalysts, and 22 student research psychoanalysts. This includes 20,908 psychologists with a current license and 1,902 in inactive status. Additionally, one psychologist is actively serving in the military and permitted to practice in a military setting, while 2 others are also serving but not permitted to provide psychological services. We also have 802 psychologists in retired status. Among the 1,805 registered psychological associates, 34 are currently in inactive status following new regulations that allow them to request this status beginning this year. More details can be found in Attachment A, the Licensing Population Report, which provides a snapshot of license and registration statuses at the time the report was generated. Compared to the last report presented at the May board meeting, the number of psychologists with current licenses increased by 58. The number for registered psychological associates decreased by 41. Retired psychologists increased by 91. And psychological testing technicians increased by 18. Attachment B contains workload data for psychologist licenses, psychological associate registrations, and psychological testing technician registrations from January through June this year. For research and student research psychoanalysts, we received 1 application for a student research psychoanalyst in April, which was issued in June. And we are beginning to see the volume of open psychological associate registration applications outpace the number of approvals. This uptake aligns with trends discussed at the last board meeting. We'll continue to monitor the volume and reallocate resources as needed to ensure timely review and processing. Attachment C provides data on applications and notifications received over a 12-month period from June 2024 through July 2025. The total number increased by approximately 170 compared to the same period in 23-24 year. Seasonal patterns remain consistent. The board reviews applications on a first-come, first-served basis. This includes, but not limited to, all applications, supporting materials, and responses to deficiencies, which are processed in the order that they're received. Attachment D provides a 6-month overview of average processing timeframes in business days. You can see that for psychologist applications, we've mostly maintained average timeframes since the last board meeting, though we saw increases in July. On average, initial review outcomes are provided within 2 weeks per step. For psychological associate applications, processing times have lengthened as we enter peak season. For psychological testing technician registrations, we've seen increases in timeframes for notification and deficiency reviews, but initial review timeframes remain stable. The anticipated 2 to 3 week increase in processing timeframes for psychological associate registrations previously reported at the last couple of board meetings is now occurring. Staff continues to recommend that applicants carefully review their submissions for completeness to avoid unnecessary delays. This concludes my report, and I'm available for questions if you may have any. Thank you.
Any board comment on the licensing report? Okay. Any public comment? Okay. Seeing none. Ms. Chung, could you share with us the examinations report?
Absolutely. Thank you, Dr. Hopsheets. Board members, please find the examination statistics from January to June 2025 provided on the memo. The memo can be found on this page 70 of the material. For the EPPP, the overall pass rate so far in 2025 is about 39%, while the overall pass rate among first-time candidates is about 62%. These numbers are comparable to those reported at the last board meeting. And when comparing pass rates to the previous 4 years, we see that results from January, March, and June 2025 are on average consistent with or even slightly higher than those of prior years. However, pass rates in February and April were lower. For the CAPLE, the overall pass rate is about 76%, and the pass rate for first-time test takers is about 77%. Both of which are similar to the rates reported at the last board meeting. Looking at trends over the past 4 years, February and March 2025 show average or better performance, while January, April, and June were somewhat lower. And this concludes the report, and I'm happy to answer any questions that you may have. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Chung. Any board questions on the examinations report? Any public comment on the examinations report? Please come forward and use the microphone, please.
Hi, good morning. My name is Dr. Araceli Lopez Arenas, and I'm sure you heard me last time talking about this, and you'll continue to hear me until we address this issue. I've been tracking the data since 2016. I appreciate you being very transparent and putting all the data online. I am a multiple test taker. I mentioned that I passed on my 5th attempt, hit 480, 490, 423, 480, 490, 480, 511. I still think I should have been in the 600s based on what I know. I started coaching because of this. These numbers, let's put money to it. 687.50 plus everybody reschedules at least once or twice, plus the cost of taking the programs to study, which for some programs are about $300 a month. Not only loss of income, I was in unlicensed limbo for 5 years. Graduated 2016, didn't pass the EPPP till 2021. I mentioned last time the severity of these numbers is that people are suicidal about this. I started coaching as a result of this because I actually care. I'm very passionate about this. We need to do something. I had a coaching client who drove from Arizona to California because we're one of the closest sites. She did not pass on her 5th or 6th attempt. And she called me, and I almost drove out to Alpine. I had her stop her car. Please stop your car. I will drive to you right now from San Diego to Alpine to prevent you from crashing, because it's a windy road. If y'all have driven that, it was it was rainy, and she almost died. And I just did a podcast interview on one of my coaching clients, and I actually have a coaching client here with me today who just passed on her 3rd attempt, and she's waiting to take the CAPLE. Let's attach numbers to this. I presented on this to the National Multicultural Conference and Summit Conference, and I've spent over $10,000. I'm a first-gen college student. Look at how many people here, how representation, right? Our communities are under attack. I want to refer people to BIPOC clinicians, but it's not even about race. It's about socioeconomic status. It's about, I'm so glad my dad didn't get dementia while I was doing this. And then we have a 6-year limit cap on how we can be a psych associate. Like, I can't tell you, clinicians' lives are at stake. And so these numbers to me are just numbers, but let's attach dollar signs and let's attach licensees. And there's clinicians that have doctorates that get licensed at the master's level because they give up on the EPPP. So I think we need to do research, data. Let's get that data.
Thank you. Okay. Any other public comment? Okay, Mr. Polk. Moving on to 11C, if you could give us the continuing professional development and renewals report. This begins on page 72 of the packet.
Thank you. Included in the meeting materials, which begins on page 72 of the combined materials, are the reports for continuing professional development and renewals. Attachment A on page 74 shows the percentage of renewals that were submitted online versus mailed in. For January through July of 2025, an average of 93% of psychologists and psychological associates renewed online using the online Breeze system, with an average of 7% of licensees and registrants renewing by completing and mailing in the paper application. Attachment B on page 75 shows the percentage of the types of renewals processed, also from January of 2025 through July of 2025. An average of 77% of psychologists renewed as active, with approximately 7% of psychologists renewed as inactive. The retirements count for approximately 2%, and psychological associates account for, on average, 10% of the monthly renewal applications. Psychological testing technicians, research psychoanalysts, and student research psychoanalysts currently are approximately 1% of the renewals processed and approved. Moving on to audits. So audits for the month of January through June of 2025 are reflected in attachment C, which is on page 76. Currently, approximately 2% licensees are selected at random based on each month's approvals of the renewal. Board members are audited every renewal period of their license. The pass rate reflected in the meeting materials is 63%, with 11% of the audits pending review, 25% of the audits waiting submission of the CPD documentation, and 1% of the audit were deficient. Currently, for the months of January, February, and March, the pass rate was 100%. And currently, there has been no failed audits based on the CPT documentation that has been received and reviewed. Licensees for July audits were selected, and the initial audit notifications will be sent out next week. And staff will continue to update the audit statistics as audits are sent and completed. Lastly, attachment D on page 77 is an updated chart that reflects the common activities that are used to complete the CPT requirements. The information provided was determined by using the completed audits from January through June of 2025 that passed. Still, the two most commonly used activities are sponsored continuing education and peer consultation, followed by self-directed learning and supervision. As provided at the licensure committee meeting, more activities, however, are being used to complete the CPT requirements, such as conference attendance, professional services, attendance at a California board or committee meeting, practice outcome monitoring, and the other activities are provided in the chart. Staff will continue to compile current statistics and will continue to update the charts as more audits are conducted and reviewed, in part with staff updating the board on trends of CPD and the CPD.
Any public comment or questions? Okay, thank you. Okay, we will take a 10-minute break. And when we come back, we will begin with item 11D. So 10:51.
41.
41. 41. I was looking at that. Wait a minute. 10:41. Thanks. Oh, it has to be? Oh, 15 minutes.
It's a 15-minute
15
break.
minutes. I must have known what I was talking about. 10:46.
10:46.
Okay. All right, thank you.
I got fever, an inflammation, that's what I thought. You turn the heat on me, some like it hot. Look what you started, a conflagration, baby, that's what. Don't let the flame go on, some like it hot. Oh, baby, I'm from that old school. I play the real fool. You got the station, I'm on the spot. Thank you very much. Some like it hot.
Yes. That's what I want. You turn the heat on me, some like it hot. Look what you started, a conflagration, baby, that's what. Don't let the flame go on, some like it hot. Oh, baby. Yeah. Call out the engine, bring out the station, I'm on the spot. Love turns you out the most, like it or not. But baby, I like it hot.
Right now, when it's setting that. So she Look at what you do.
Missing Mr. Fu.
Pardon me? Oh,
We're
we're
missing-
waiting for Mr. Fu?
Yes.
Okay. We will start as soon as Mr. Fu returns.
Thank you. We are back. It is 10:48. Ms. Whitney, can you please call the roll?
Tate,
Here.
Rogers,
Here.
Kasuga,
Here.
Cervantes, Harpsheets,
Here.
Fu,
Here.
Nystrom. Here. Riscate. Thank you, quorum is established.
Thank you. Before I hand it back over to Dr. Harb Sheets to resume item 11D, two housekeeping items. The goal is to break for lunch at 12:30 for an hour. So I just want to make sure everyone knows that for planning purposes. And the second housekeeping item, the agenda item that we're just about to take up, EPPP update, that is the appropriate place. If you have EPPP comments, please do not hold them for agenda item 18. That item we will not be taking up. That was a placeholder just in case the ASPPB survey came out, but it has not. So, Dr. Harb Sheets.
Thank you very much. Okay. The EPPP update, I would just like to preface that by giving a bit of an update on our August 8th licensure committee meeting. And we had, at one point, I looked 351 people on that call. And a lot of input, a lot of concerns expressed about the EPPP as it is now. And then, of course, what we are expecting and concerned about. I want everyone to know that ASPPB is holding a town hall meeting on September 18th, specifically for students and people in the licensure process, where people will have an opportunity to provide input, to hear where they're at, but also to provide input, which I think is essential. In your packets, in the board packets, there will be information about how to sign up, and Ms. Chung will give us some detail on that. I wanted to also just reiterate the concerns of the licensure committee about the pass rates. And as Mr. Burke let us know, we are not ASPPB. We are a member jurisdiction, as are all the states in the US and Canadian provinces. And so that doesn't mean we don't watch the pass rates, we don't pay attention to what's happening, particularly in California. And so let me turn it over to Ms. Chung to give us some more detailed information about what we have been doing regarding the enhanced EPPP coming down the line.
Thank you, Dr. Harpshees. Good morning, board members. At the last board meeting, we had the opportunity to have Representative Dr. Hao Song from ASPPB to come and talk to the board about their movement and updates on the integrated EPPP. So at the meeting, there were discussion, and then the board has expressed some concerns about the exam, and subsequently staff and
work with the board to draft a letter and send that a letter of concern to the board, to ASPPB relating to the integrated EPPP about that. The letter was sent on June 2nd, 2025, which you can find it in the attachment A of this item. And after that, ASPPB also has some more information by holding a second virtual town hall meeting for education and training community on June 25th, 2025. We have board staff attended the second virtual town hall just to keep up to date of the information sharing at that session. As Dr. Hapshis was saying that they will be hosting, ASPPB will be hosting another virtual town hall meeting for students and licensed certification candidates on September 18th, 2025 from 1 to 3 p.m. Eastern Time. So we have attached a copy of the announcement and registration information in attachment B. So there will be a QR code on the attachment where you can just scan and go through the registration portal to be on the to register for the town hall. There should be also a clickable link where it says register now in the material too. So if you have any trouble, please see me and then I will be able to help you locate that information. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Chung. Any board comments or questions? Okay. Dr. Rogers.
Yes, just a quick question about the town hall that's coming up. With this QR code, is there a way for us to be able to put this maybe on our social media so other folks who would like to attend would be able to do that?
Mr. Burke?
Yes, thank you. We have posted about it on our social media platforms. We also sent an email blast out to everyone and just asking anyone watching, if you know anyone who is a candidate, an applicant in education, please let them know. It really is important to have a big turnout from California, I believe, to hear what ASPPB has to say and what's more to give their opinions as well. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
The initial town hall meeting that they did have, it's on. Oh, the initial town, I shall stand here. The initial town hall meeting that they did have, I attended, and I think our examinations coordinator also attended. And we really just sort of listened to hear what they were saying. And so they are having a series of these town halls trying to get feedback. And then they've sent out a survey, and we sent out from the board, right, to all of our licensees that survey, and we would encourage you to provide input that way also. Okay. Public comment. Before we open for public comment, I just want to reiterate that we have 2 minutes each person, and also if you pretty much want to say the same thing somebody just said, please come up, make your public comment by affirming that you agree with the previous speaker, so we can move forward and give everybody a chance to speak. Okay. If you have a public comment, please come forward and have a seat.
It's me again. I'm Dr. Janet Farrell from San Diego. I'm asking the board that you assign to your executive officer the task of communicating with the executive officer of the Texas Board of Psychology regarding an alternative licensing exam to replace the proposed integrated EPPP. I'm also asking that the board compose a list of specific questions for your executive officer to ask of Texas's executive officer in order to determine the feasibility of California adopting their exam. 2 months ago, the Texas legislature allocated $1 million for the development of an alternative, simpler, less costly psychology licensing exam that will accurately assess the knowledge of licensed psychologists as needed. This is part of an effort to lower unnecessary barriers to licensure to help address the increasing shortage of psychologists, which poses pose a barrier to mental health access for consumers in most states, including California. Adopting Texas's exam would eliminate the time and cost involved in developing our own California test. Because Texas welcomes other states to use their test, and many are expressing interest, there would be reciprocity across the states using that exam. In the past 9 years since I began studying and advocating against the EPPP, my respect for the dedicated service of our California Board of Psychology has increased, while my respect for ASPPB and their motives has plummeted. Since introducing the EPPP2, ASPPB has behaved like any other money-driven vendor who has a monopoly on a product it markets. I see ASPP's current town halls and board presentations as public relation efforts to push their unwanted newest product onto the states and provinces and to appear to be collaborative in the hope of avoiding yet another FTC lawsuit.
Thank you.
My name is Dr. Robert Teal, and I just wanted to agree with what Dr. Farrell said. We oftentimes hear a lot about barriers to licensure, and generally, there should be barriers to licensure. I am in favor of the fact that there are barriers to licensure, and not everybody should be a psychologist. And really what we're talking here is a matter of specificity. You know, how do we find accurate measures that will have the specificity to delineate who should be a psychologist or not? Certainly that in grad school, there was lots of complaints about, you know, does the EPPP accurately measure this? We've heard testimony about certain demographics, it not accurately measuring them, potentially. And I would encourage the board to explore and at least look at this alternative test, because I have not seen any data so far that the new EPPP2 will have greater specificity. It will benefit the public any more than the current test. And I would encourage you guys to wait and see what else can be developed and look at the data and make sure that what the barriers to licensure that we do implement will serve us as well as the public efficiently. Thank you.
Thank you.
Arthur Tom Horvath, San Diego psychologist. I concur with the thoughtful comments of the two previous speakers.
Thank you.
Hi again, Araceli Lopez Arenas. I concur with the previous speakers, and I had an audience member help me clarify my message. I think it's great that we're thinking about exploring other options, but let's look at what we have. Let's look at the data. Where's the data? Where's the demographic data? I know I give it every time that I sign up and submit and take a test. As psychologists, this is what we do. We're psychometricians. We develop tests, and the basics in your stats 101, demographic variables, because then we can control for variables. So what is the racial ethnic demographics? Where is the socioeconomic status? Where is language? Another issue that we're not looking at is neurodivergence and learning disabilities. There's people who, including myself, right, that will serve as a barrier to how we do on standardized tests, right? I'm not a good standardized tester. So where's the data? My message is data, 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 and make it publicly available. Just like you report the stats on who passes, you're not reporting who doesn't pass. It's a simple, thing to do. So let's explore who's not passing. Why are they not passing? And then let's look at the people who are passing. What are they doing? Because let's do what they're doing. If that's working for them, we should probably do that, because we're talking about protecting the public, but who protects us as clinicians? This is the basics of what we do. So where's the data? I've asked ASPPB. They don't say anything. They say we don't collect it. So data, I asked for data and transparency and just put it on the website. So it's easily accessible. And then anybody can do research on this. And then you can see if it merits coming up with your own. It'll probably show that it will, but thank you.
Thank you. Dr. Schaefer?
I'm responding for Division 2 on education and training of the California Psychological Association, of which I'm currently the acting chair. And a letter was sent to me by the board members that they were putting together for this event, and I'll just cut to the chase part of it. It says that we have serious concerns and reservations about embarking on such an initiative because we ask the board to consider these following concerns that we have. The development of a valid and reliable examination will involve formidable changes which would require significant professional, scientific, and technical resources. The costs would be substantial, with potentially little actual benefit to the public and to psychologists. 2, the test must meet high psychometric standards, or its validity, reliability, and utility would likely be challenged in complaints and litigation. 3, further establishing a distinct California exam will pose substantial challenges for license portability, placing significant burdens on psychologists who would likely be required to take the EPPP and pragmatically restricting their ability to pursue professional opportunities for practice in other states or jurisdictions. 4, consensus exists that the way of the future is interjurisdictional practice. Should California develop such an exam, it will essentially eliminate California psychologists' ability to practice in other states and place them at a distinct disadvantage. So in my 30 seconds, I want to say from the comments of the other individuals, their concerns have been ongoing concern that I brought up to the board as well, and including when ASPPB showed numerous times here. There is no data. The standard of our profession of develop any test construction or any therapeutic intervention is based on extant data which they've previously collected to show the need for. The fact that someone or a group would organize a test of any kind without data to show the purpose and the utility brings into question test construction as we all know it and learned it in our graduate programs. So that combined with these other concerns, they're greater than just here in California, but how it will affect people moving forward in terms of mobility issues and other states that are much less open-minded, let's say, than California is traditionally, that may restrict those that get licensed here from moving elsewhere. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Schaefer. Any other public comment on item 11D, EPPP?
Hello, my name is Dr. Roche. I agree with people who just went before me, and I want to add also about the age. We know that the EPPP is really based on our fluid memory, and we know that fluid memory comes down, decrease from age 30. So from people who have, I am 51 and learning so much memorization, it was really, really hard for me. So I think we also need to consider that, like, we should not have the same score than somebody who is like 28 or 29 taking the test, because it's not fair for somebody who has certain age to learn so much material and have the same score than somebody who is at the end of 28, 29. So I think we should consider that too, age discrimination.
Perhaps you could share that if you go to the town hall meeting.
Yes, I will. Thank you.
Any other public comment? No? Okay. Thank you all. Moving on to item 11E, barriers to telehealth survey. Oh, I'm sorry. Yes. Any board comment again?
Yeah, sorry about that.
No problem.
Sometimes question comes to me after.
Later. Okay.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
First, just with a question for Ms. Ganaway, our legal counsel. Could you help me understand what the board's access to data or use of data with regard to race under Proposition 209 in California. What does that mean for us as a board when we think about using data, specifically racial data, for decision making?
So you're asking our legal counsel.
Yes. Because it sounds like a legal question.
Yeah, it does sound like a legal question, yes.
Generally, we're not supposed to be using that information. So I can look into it further and have it more information available for the next meeting, but we're not supposed to be using that information.
And for clarification, that we're not supposed to be using it, that's a state law passed by voters under Proposition 209.
That's correct.
Great, thank you. I just want to clarify that point. And then to Ms. Chung, it's like bingo today. Ms. Chung, remind me, the Office of Professional Examination Services, what is the role of OPES with regard to the access of data from ASPPB to examine whether or not the test is meeting the standards that we've set forth with regard to all the issues raised today, including by the board to ASPPB?
Thank you, Mr. Fu. Thank you. So I'll try to, I don't want to speak on behalf of OPES, Office of Examination Services, but per our law, Business and Professions Code 139, they're required to examine and access regularly about an exam that a board use to meet their structure or validity requirement. So that is what I know. And I know that they did this assessment regularly. They call occupational analysis on our exams every 5 to 7 years. So actually a copy of the report that was recently done, the most recent report is also available as part of the materials of this item. It's not the actual report, but it's actually a link that takes you to our board's website where we post information and historical information about the development of the EPPP. So you will find some more useful information there as well, you know, of their reports and what does OPS do for us.
And then I would add recently, I think just several months ago, remember OPES presented to us their report on people taking this exam and some information about who's passing, how long does it take people to pass. And so if anybody is interested in the link to that, we can help you get that link. Just let us know. It is online and it will give some information. It's not going to answer every question, but it might help.
And Dr. Harpshies, if I recall that presentation correctly, it not only talked about who was passing, but also the characteristics of folks who do not pass as well.
Right.
So it provides both perspectives on that front. And I understand that some of that data also included COVID during that time period, which they were pretty clear about how that might have some effects in terms of interpretation of that data.
Right.
But I think I'm curious about perhaps inviting OPES back at a future board meeting, because I find it really helpful as a board member to have them a constant presence, given the evolving nature of the EPPP. As we all know, there is no longer EPPP Part 2. That is not going to happen. And so it's going to be the integrated exam that includes both skills as well as knowledge in one sitting. And so I think it's really helpful for us to engage OPES fairly regularly, given what Ms. Chung has said about their important role in helping us make decisions with regard to, is this the right exam for licensing psychologists? I mean, that's their fundamental question is this the right exam for licensing psychologists? And I think they would be a really helpful input. And I think they do get access to a lot of the data. We would clarify with them, but I think there's a level of access they have that we do not.
Right. Yeah. I'm wondering.
I support that. I support having OPES regularly part of our board meeting as we engage with them with things that are related to ASPPB, both the current test and whatever is being developed.
I'm also wondering if Mr. Burke, you could, since you've had this conversation with the executive officer at ASPPB, since we have some issues that are logistical for us in terms of their implementation date, as well as our recent change, which allows students to take this exam early after finishing their coursework, which we thought would be helpful. And what ASPPB is saying about, no, they should take it after, just before their license. So that's a long time. So do you have any updated information on that?
No really updated information, but just in the conversation that I had, I did stress our concerns in those areas.
Mhm.
And what my counterpart at ASPPB, Dr. Benetti Atwell, said was she would be very clear working with her board, expressing what our concerns were, particularly about the logistics and the timing of taking the exam, that was a big concern for the California board.
Okay. Yeah. And the implementation date that they're talking about?
Yes, I said that 2027.
Mhm.
I always say this, it seems far away, but it's extremely close. If you're looking at regulatory and legislative timelines, which is what this would, as from what we currently know about what they're planning, it would entail both of those. So maybe pushing that date out or having a period, because there are going to be people who have got eligibility to take the exam as it is. So there will have to be a time probably where there are where the two new exams coexist. Is something that we would. That's something I communicated to her, and again she said thank you. We discussed the letter that that the board had sent at length, and she did assure me that she will be working to make sure that our concerns are considered and addressed by the ASPPB board.
Yeah. And I think some people have brought up the idea of, within our board and in the public, the idea that if we have different exams, we heard this from, I know, Dr. Schaefer too, 2 different exams, yet some states are using the EPPP, some states are using, remember we looked at making our own exam, those kinds of things, that could be an issue. And I think it's important for us to not let that drop from consideration, but I'm hoping that ASPPB will take into account the feedback they get about the concerns that we hear from our public members, that we heard at the licensure committee, and that we're hearing today. Yes, Mr. Fu.
Thank you so much, Dr. Harbschutz. And Mr. Burke, before I lose this train of thought, would you be so kind to reach out to your counterpart in the Lone Star State just to say hello and ask what they're developing? We don't need to go through the theatrics of authorizing you to do it. You frequently are in touch with so many wonderful people. But I think it would be just really helpful if you could let us maybe share at our next board meeting that you've contacted them and you have information from what they're thinking about creating, and that can be included in our board packets.
Absolutely, yes. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Fu. Okay. No further public comments, board comments. Okay. We will move on to item 11E, the barriers to telehealth survey. And Ms. Chung, could you share that with us?
Yes, thank you, Dr. Harbschutz. So a little while ago, the board and the licensure committee has worked on the reference document as a follow-up to the barriers to telehealth survey that the board sent out. So this document is finalized and ready to be posted on the board's website. Board staff has attached a final product for the board to take a look. And board staff will plan to post this reference document on the licensees page under practice guidelines, articles, notices, and other useful information on that page. And board staff would like to thank Ms. Amy Greenley from the Department of Consumer Affairs Publications Design and Editing Office for helping us designing the document. Thank you.
Thank you. Any board questions, comments? It's on page 91 of our packet. It looks very nice, very professional. Any public comment? Okay. Let somebody out there. Okay. Item number 11F, which is the stakeholder meeting preparation. Stakeholder meeting, for people who might not remember, is, we recognized several years ago that there are license categories that the BBS licenses, and that they are somewhat similar sounding to the public to license categories that we license. And we wanted to meet with other stakeholders to have a conversation. How can we make this clear to the public so people know what they can get from each license category, what services can be provided? So I will ask Ms. Chung if she could give us the update on where we're at with that meeting.
Thank you, Dr. Hopshees, for the background. So this stakeholder meeting was originally scheduled to happen during the July 2025 Licensure Committee meeting, but because both our board and the Board of Behavioral Sciences currently undergoing the sunset review process, so the stakeholder meeting is tentatively rescheduled to the second licensure committee meeting in 2026. I just want to highlight that preparing for a stakeholder meeting requires significant time and resources, and postponing it will allow board staff the necessary time to adequately prepare, ensuring the meeting is meaningful and productive for all participants. And back to you. Thank you, Dr. Hopshees.
Okay. Thank you, Ms. Chung. Any board member comments, questions? Yes, Dr. Kasuga.
Thank you, Ms. Chung, for that update. I just wanted to reiterate that this is an ongoing issue in the practice, and especially for assessments. I understand that it has to be pushed at a later time because of the sunset review, but I just wanted to put it out there that this is an ongoing issue, and it would be something that we should continue to work towards. And I'm hoping that, as what you said, that there is it needs a lot of preparation, that we make sure that we're able to prepare adequately to make this happen next year. Because just a little bit of backstory, this has been pushed out from COVID as well, because during COVID, this has been brought up, and because of the commotion around that time for everyone's practices being turned upside down, and the shortage that period of time brought, this was already pushed out. So I just wanted to make sure that we acknowledge that this is being moved at a later time, but we are on top of it, and that we are acknowledging that the confusion is going on right now, until this is we are able to do something to provide better clarification in coordination with the other boards.
Thank you, Dr. Kasuga. And as the licensure committee chair, I can assure you we are committed to making this happen.
Thank you.
Okay. Any other board comment? Any public comment? None? Okay. We will move on to item 12, Madam President.
Hold on, I gotta get on the screen. Uh-oh. No video. Okay, thank you, Dr. Harbsheets. We're moving on to agenda item number 12. This is the Legislative and Regulatory Affairs Committee update. Dr. Kasuga.
Welcome, Ms. Mancia, to start us off with agenda item 12A, review of bills and possible positions. this can be found on page 92 of the continuous packet.
Hi, thank you. We will begin with the review of bills for review of for consideration for action position for recommendation to the board. AB 82 Ward Healthcare Legally Protected Healthcare Activity. AB 82 introduced by Assembly Member Christopher Ward on December 2024 strengthens protections for gender affirming and reproductive healthcare in California. The proposed bill expands the definition of legally protected healthcare to include gender affirming care and mental health services, ensuring these are covered under existing state protections. The bill prohibits California courts and agencies from cooperating with out-of-state investigations related to legal gender-affirming care or abortion. Healthcare providers, staff, and volunteers offering gender-affirming care can apply for Secretary of State's address confidentiality program similar to protections for reproductive health workers. AB 82 makes it illegal to post or sell personal information like addresses or photos of patients or providers with the intent to harass or incite violence. Violators will face civil and criminal penalties. AB 82 was referred to Public Safety Committee and Privacy and Consumer Protection Committee on March 28, 2025. AB 82 passed the Assembly and was referred to the Senate on June 3, 2025. As of August 18, 2025, AB 82 was referred to suspense file. At its June 6, 2025 meeting, the Legislative and Regulatory Affairs Committee voted to recommend that the board adopt a support position on AB 82.
Okay, thank you, Ms. Mencia. Given that information, do I hear a motion for the board?
So moved.
Okay, so it's been moved by Mr. Fu and seconded by Dr. Rogers, and it is for the board to take a support position in AB 82. Any board discussion at this point?
I'm going to recuse myself from this item.
Thank you, Ms. Nystrom.
I just have a quick comment about this. I know that we are a consumer protection agency, but I really appreciate the spirit of the bill in terms of wanting to ensure that providers who are providing care for clients are also protected under this bill. I had never heard of the Safe at Home program, and I wasn't sure if other psychologists were aware of that. That there was a confidentiality program that therapists could apply for if they were concerned about any potential threat, which is found on the Secretary of State's website. So just really appreciate the spirit of the bill.
Thank you, Dr. Rogers. Any other board comment? Seeing none, let's open it up to public comment. And again, we are having a 2-minute time limit for comments. Thank you.
Good morning, everyone. Tyler Indy with the California Psychological Association. CPA has a support position on AB 82. Thank you for the conversation on this. This bill is really important to our members. And it was brought to us back in February of just concerns that after the recent election and just the political environment that we are all living in right now, that the fear for safety is growing, and the Safe at Home and our members are really particularly invested in the Safe at Home program provisions of this, where it can expand and cover them and provide them a confidential address if they're facing fear for their safety, any threats, and they're providing gender affirming care services. Right now, the language is limited to reproductive healthcare workers. It's limited also to public officials and victims of domestic violence. And so this is a natural progression of this law that was established in the late 90s to end up expanding it to cover gender affirming care providers. So thank you for the conversation and urge your support on AB 82. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other public comment? Seeing none, let's call for a vote.
Tate,
Aye.
Rogers,
Aye.
Kasuga,
Aye.
Fontes, Harpsheet,
Aye.
Aye.
Nystrom is recused. Riscate. Aye. Thank you. Motion passed.
Thank you. I do have a quick question for board staff with regards what we usually do with regards the information about the support position. So I understand that we do write a letter and we post it on the website. Is there anything else that we do with regards information about that psychologists information, additional information that psychologists should know about some of this, the provisions of the laws that we're supporting? Or
The board's justification for supporting or opposing any legislation is usually contained in the letter, which is posted to our website. Our position is linked in our newsletter if we've taken a formal position on a bill. The letter is also sent to the relevant legislative committees and the author, so that we're on file there, and board staff, sometimes me, sometimes Miss Whitney, sometimes Miss Mancia, actually attend the hearing and voice support or opposition, just communicating the board's position.
Thank you. Thank you. I think it's just good to kind of provide a little bit of additional information of what happens once the board takes a position, whether it's support or opposed position, and what happens from there. Thank you. Okay, moving on to the next agenda item.
Thank you, Dr. Kasuga. So SB 402 by Arthur Valladares, Healthcare Coverage in Autism. On February 14th, 2025, Senator Suzette Martinez Valladares introduced SB 402. The bill relocates key definitions for autism service providers from Healthcare and Safety Code and Insurance Code into the Business Professions Code. These definitions are qualified autism service provider, qualified autism service professional, and qualified autism service paraprofessional. This shift brings autism-related behavioral healthcare services under the oversight of existing professional licensing boards, such as the Board of Psychology and the Board of Behavioral Sciences, aligning them with other licensed healthcare professions. The change supports greater regulatory clarity and enables boards to set practice standards and disciplinary processes, but does not affect their insurance coverage for autism services. On February 26, 2025, SB 402 was referred to the Senate Committee on Business Professions and Economic Development. On June 3rd, 2025, SB 402 passed the Senate and was ordered to the Assembly. On June 9th, 2025, SB 402 was referred to the Assembly Committee SB 402 was set for first hearing for August 25th. Board staff recommends the board take a position of support on SB 402 as the bill enhances regulatory clarity, it strengthens the enforcement pathways, and appropriately centralizes oversight of autism service providers under the professional licensing boards.
Thank you. Ms. Mencia, can you explain to us how this bill is going to impact the board operations, if at all?
Yes. So for autism practice, it's currently, this bill is moving the definitions of qualified autism service providers, professionals, and paraprofessionals from the insurance code. So previously, while professionals in psychology may be treating those with autism, those definitions were only in the insurance codes and not regulated by psychologists. And now it's moving those definitions under the psychology regulation. And so now that it's under our regulatory oversight, we're actually able to not only treat them, but while the oversight is also within the insurance, it gives us more oversight, and it helps us with treating them and creating enforcement statutes. It gives us a little bit more authority over the profession of autism and treatment specifically, which I believe, again, I'm only an analyst, allows the board more flexibility when working with patients with autism. And so when I presented this to Dr. Kasuga, asked for her input as a psychologist, and we had a bit of a discussion, so I'll kind of let you maybe present your point of view.
So basically, this will impact some of our licensees that provide autism treatment. So right now, we have, so autism treatment will be considered, it is a psychological service that our psychologists that we license from our board, and also some of our psych associates and other registrations that we have under the Board of Psychology, we are able to now regulate their practice closely. They will be subjected to all the ethical standards that our psychologists have to abide by when they're doing therapy, when they're doing assessments, psych assessments, when they're doing autism work. So right now, that just like enables us to have better oversight of our licensees. And that's the main difference between what's happening previously and this new bill.
Yes, and so the definitions are now being moved into the BPC. They were not in the BPC previously. With that, I would be able to now go through all of our regulations and see what does not align. And if there is some areas that don't align, we can create those regulatory packages to get them through. Ideally, and I was having this conversation, they would align and we wouldn't have to have that extra those packages. But if they didn't, they would be minor changes similar to our telehealth, which I will get to in a little bit, packages where we just have to change a few words to align it and then push those through. But it would not create necessarily additional work that we could not absorb.
Move the item.
Second.
Okay, so it has been moved by Mr. Fu and seconded by Dr. Tate. Any other board comments?
I'll recuse myself on this item as well. Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
I have a question.
Okay.
What does this mean practically for our board? In other words, are we saying that we would move these categories, not just people we're already licensed, but like we moved in the research psychoanalysts from the medical board? Would we be creating another category that our board would monitor?
No, that's a really good question. So basically, it's not moving anything like that. It's just that we have psychologists are one of those individuals that have those categories, the qualified.
There's 3 definitions that were not previously specifically listed in the BPC, which is qualified autism service provider, qualified service professional, and autism service paraprofessional. They were only listed under insurance codes. And so they could be billed for insurance purposes, but in terms of treatment, they weren't regulated under the psychology profession. Now they will align.
So if you look at page 135 of the continuous packet, a licensed psychologist, for instance, would be a qualified autism service provider under B, and then a psych associate would be on the next page, page 136. So our licensees and registrants are already serving people with autism. So we won't have to create any category. It's just being able to provide oversight for our licensees and current categories that are providing autism related services. And so the only thing that logistically that the board might have to do is to look at our regulations and maybe make some changes with regards terms or anything that is not aligned with our current regulations to accommodate this change.
Okay. sorry if it's kind of a redundant question. Why can't we do that now?
Because it's not in the BPC yet. These
So if I'm a psychologist and I'm treating someone with autism, I have to follow all the same regulations, right?
Yeah.
And how is this different?
So these specific terms, qualified autism service provider, professional, paraprofessional, are specifically not currently listed under the BPC. That's what this bill is trying to specifically do, so that they are specifically regulated under BBS and the Board of Psychology.
So it's just realigning the.
So you
the
can
terms.
still treat individuals with autism, but the board just can't regulate you if you're a licensee for it.
Okay.
Does that answer your question?
Yeah, that surprised me.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Any other questions? Let's open up for public questions or comments.
Tyler Indy again with CPA. We don't have a position on this bill, but just to clarify, you all didn't vote on the past one, AB 82. So I didn't, yeah, there was a motion and a second, but you didn't vote. Okay,
Yes,
thank you. You did?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's it.
It was quick.
Okay, apologies then.
No problem. Thank you. Any other public comment? Seeing none, let's have a vote for SB 402.
Tate,
Aye.
Rogers,
Aye.
Suga,
Aye.
Cervantes, Arbsheets,
Aye.
Fu,
Aye.
Nystrom has recused, and Riscate.
Aye.
Thank you. Motion passes.
Okay, moving on, we will be tackling 12B.
Okay.
And this is on page 189. Thank you.
Yes. So the next about 5 bills are bills with active position taken by the board. I'll begin with SB 775. The proposed bill was introduced by Senator Angelique Ashby on February 21st, 2025 as a sunset bill, originally for the Board of Behavioral Sciences, and was amended on April 30th, 2025 to include the Board of Psychology. The bill extends the statutory authority of the California Board of Psychology and the Board of Behavioral Sciences from January 1st, 2026 to January 1st, 2030. On May 9th, 2025, the board reviewed SB 775 and voted to adopt a supportive amended position. The board submitted a position letter to the Senate Business and Professions Committee on May 21st, 2025. SB 775 passed the Senate on June 4th, 2025, and was referred to the Assembly. SB 775 addresses several issues identified in the Board of Psychology's 2025 Sunset Review report, including reinstating the $25 supervisor change fee, expanding eligible academic disciplines for psychological testing technicians, such as neuroscience, cognitive science, behavioral science, updating enforcement provisions for clarity and consistency, as well as of July 2nd, 2025, amendments. It expanded the board's authority over research psychoanalysts and student research psychoanalysts. This included new training mandates such as substance abuse, suicide intervention, and aging, continuing professional development, CPD requirements, fingerprinting fees, and alignment with other behavioral health professions, public education program, and ethical psychoanalytic practice. It does not, however, include clarifying foreign degree qualification standards or fingerprinting authority. SB 775 was referred to the Assembly on Business and Profession Committee on June 16, 2025. SB 775 passed the committee and was referred to Assembly Appropriations on July 8th. SB 775, as of August 20, 2025, was placed in suspense file. There will be an item presented later on today to further discuss the fingerprinting authority.
Okay, all of these items are for updates and information purposes only, so we're going to go through all of them.
Okay. Next item is AB 4.
Dr. Kasuga, would you be open for us to just receive and file these reports if they're active with no position or action recommended, and we can then move on to items that require action?
Sure.
I mean, assuming the Madam President is fine with that, just give it, unless there are questions from the board. So but because of how good we are in terms of reading materials,
Yes.
my presumption is that if board members have questions for them, that they can pull the item for discussion. But if there's no action on the remaining ledge items, we can just receive and file, take public comment, and move on.
Yeah, so basically, I think that was the only one that has like an update, right? Is that correct, Ms. Messier?
Yes, the remaining don't. The only one was under the watch bills, which was 985.
Yeah. Okay. So we can all the information for agenda item 12B 1 to 5 are available on the packets, and they're all for information purposes only. With the exception of the first one that we discussed, which we will be taking up on a later item. So we can move on to agenda item 12C, specifically the one where we have an update, which will be
12C8.
12C8, and that would be on page 500 of the continuous packets. Oh, for
in public comment.
okay. Okay, thank you, Council. Okay, so is there any board comment on agenda item 12B 1 to 5? Seeing and hearing none, how about public comment on the said agenda item? Okay, none. So we're gonna move on to 12C. Ms. Messier? And these are the watch bills. Update, again, page 500. We'll be tackling 12C8, where there is an update, a short update.
So just a brief note, watch bills are bills without positions from the board. However, these are bills that we are tracking. They may have items that the board are interested in, but not yet ready for an active position. So just wanted to clarify that.
Thank you.
Yeah. So AB 985, Shivo.
Sorry, Dr. Maybe I wasn't clear. I was also suggesting unless board members want to pull an item from these watch bills, we can then pull that up. But if not, we can then take public comment and board comment and conclude this section, assuming there aren't any action items that I think 12.8 that you mentioned, C8.
Yes, yeah. We're gonna do that. It's just that this item has an update. This is the only thing that has an update. And we'll take comments, or we'll have any board member pull whatever they want to discuss from the watch bill. But otherwise, we're going to just discuss 12CB8. Go on, Ms. Garcia.
Chiquita Canyon Landfill Mortgage Forbearance Property Tax Reassessment and Penalties. The proposed bill was originally introduced on February 20, 2025 by Assemblymember Patrick Arons. AB 985 was originally introduced as a healthcare-related bill concerning use of professional titles, name tags, later amended to address anesthesiologist assistance licensure. As of June 23rd, 2025, the bill was completely rewritten, and Assemblymember Pilar Charibo replaced Assemblymember Patrick Arons as author. The bill now focuses on mortgage and property tax relief for residents affected by the Chiquita Canyon landfill crisis in Los Angeles County. This bill now authorizes mortgage forbearance and prohibits foreclosure for financially impacted borrowers, allows property tax reassessment for properties within 5 miles of landfill, suspends penalties and interest on delinquent taxes until April 10th, 2030, and delays default status for some installment plans. As of August 18th, 2025, AB 985 was referred to suspense file. The board has been monitoring AB 985 since May 2025, when it addressed the use of titles of doctors. However, the bill's current status is no longer within the board's jurisdiction. Unless the bill reverts back to the original language, the bill will be removed from the watch list.
Okay, thank you. So unless anything changes to make us want to watch this bill, this will not be on our watch bill list next for future board meetings. And we just want to put that for transparency with regards removing or adding any watch bill. Thank you so much. And is there any board comment for agenda items 12C 1 to 9? Seeing none, how about public comments for the watch bills? Seeing and hearing none, we'll move on to the next agenda item, which is agenda item number 14, regulatory updates.
No, it's actually 13, but can I interrupt you briefly? Not to put you on the spot, Ms. Nystrom, can you briefly, just for transparency purposes, explain to the group why you recuse yourself from the legislative item voting?
Absolutely. Thank you so much. I work with the California State Senate and often work as a member that I staff and often work on staffing bills. And so I just, in abundance of caution, just recuse myself on the legislative items. Thank you.
Thank you for explaining.
And sorry about that. Number 13 too, sorry. Okay, so sorry, I just jumped ahead. Obviously, I cannot follow this. Okay, so agenda item number 13 is a discussion regarding legislative items for future meeting. The board may discuss other items of legislation in sufficient detail to determine whether such items should be on a future committee or board meeting agenda, or whether to hold a special meeting of the committee or board to discuss such items pursuant to the said government code, section 11125.4. Any legislative items for future meetings from the board? Yes.
I would be curious for Dr. Kusuga and Madam President and Ms. Whitney and Mr. Burke to explore maybe a consent agenda for items. So related to bills, and so if there
information only and watch.
And if there's a support item, if we have a group of 3 to 4 bills that are support, we can adopt them as one consent agenda item, assuming it cleared the legislative committee that Dr. Kusuga chairs with no votes.
Okay.
Yeah, I'd definitely be in favor of that.
Okay, thank you. Any other legislative items? How about from the public for agenda item number 13? Seeing and hearing none, we'll move on to agenda item number 14, which is the regulatory update, review, and discussion and possible action regarding additional changes to proposed regulations. So I believe this is also for information purposes only. So if anyone wants anything discussed for us to pull from 14A to G. Seeing none from the board, how about for our public? Seeing none, that completes 14, agenda item number 14. Moving on to agenda.
No, that was 14, actually, yes.
Sorry. Okay, so agenda item number 15 is discussion and possible action of proposed changes to language to the disciplinary guidelines and uniform standards related to substance abusing licensees.
Thank you. Okay, so the Board of Psychology is responsible for licensing and regulating and investigating complaints involving psychologists and psychological associates under Chapter 6.6, Division 2 of the Business and Professions Code. The board's primary mandate, as outlined in BPC 2920.1, is protecting the public. The board proposes updates to the disciplinary guidelines to align with recent statutory and regulatory changes. These revisions reflect requirements stemming from the enactment of AB 2138. And the board regulations regarding criminal convictions and substantial relationship criteria and the department's uniform standards of substance abusing licensees. At its August 18, 2023 meeting, the board voted to adopt regulatory amendments to Title 16 California Code of Regulations, Section 1395.2, which originally established the disciplinary guidelines by regulation in 1992. These guidelines provide a standardized framework for imposing disciplinary actions under the Administrative Procedure Act and serve as a critical reference in all board enforcement matters. However, the current version, last amended in 2015, contains outdated language and probation conditions that are inconsistent with current legal standards. The proposed revisions include both substantive and technical updates. These changes add the phrase model disciplinary orders to the title, hyphenate substance abusing, standardized capitalization such as decision, and update the effective date to amend it from 8/2023 to 8/2025. The proposal also revises the authority and reference sections BPC 2936. The board staff requests that the board review and approve the proposed revisions to Section 1395.2, Article 7, Division 13.1, Title 16 of the California Code of Regulations. These revisions modify the regulatory text previously approved at the August 2023 board meeting. Staff also requests approval of changes to the document incorporated by reference. Both attachments are included with the board materials found on page, sorry, it's like right below 562 and 563. Beginning on 562. Any questions?
Thank you. Do we have a motion?
Just wanted to have conversation about
Discussion.
discussion.
Yeah, okay, got it. Okay, yes.
I wonder, Dr. Kusuga, if perhaps asking for public comment might be helpful in terms of some of the discussion items. I know we received a lot of public comments electronically, and my suspicion is there might be public comments in real time here that will help inform our discussion.
Definitely. Okay, we'll start off with with board comments and questions, but I also wanted to acknowledge that we did receive substantial amounts of public comment, and they're all available on the packets that we have. Okay.
Okay. So these guidelines, these proposed guidelines were initially approved by the board in August of 2023. And we have such a long timeline for things to happen, and things change in our industry. And I think we become more and more aware of what realities are. So as a board member, I want to say that I have concerns about them. One, I think that a standard 5-year probationary period seems unreasonable. Let's just take the example of someone, for example, who submits they state on their license renewal application that, yes, I have done these 36 hours of continuing professional development, and then they maybe didn't realize that some of the courses they went to were not APA or other appropriate sponsor approved. It doesn't make sense to automatically assume something negative and impose a 5-year probationary period for that. That's just one example. And also, it doesn't make sense to automatically mandate a psychological evaluation for that person. And so I think we need to really reconsider those. I think it's more helpful when we provide some kind of thoughtful process as we approach these situations. And then finally, as we all know how difficult it is to, when we, as practicing psychologists who need to make referrals, we can't get people referred very easily. It's very, very difficult. So to ask someone who is on probation to have only 30 days to find somebody and get those conditions satisfied seems, again, unreasonable. And, I could go with 60, but even I think that's even more pushing it. So I just wanted to state that. I think it's a reflection of the changes in the last few years.
Hi,
Thank you.
Dr. Harbsheets. I agree with you regarding your first concern. I would like a little more, if I had my druthers, a little more flexibility with the 5 years. It'd be nice to have some 3 years, 4 years, 5 years. I would like that. But I do disagree with your psychological evaluation suggestion. I think that if someone's about to be on probation, they've already violated the laws and regulations. And so on our side, it's important to make sure that the violation didn't occur because of a psychological reason. And the only way to really establish that would be from a psychological evaluation. So that's just my perspective. And your 30 days to 60 days is, I agree, is reasonable. We need a little more time for people.
Any other board discussion? Yes, Mr. Fu.
It's going to feel like it's coming out of left field, but something that's been on my mind for a long time, having been on the enforcement committee, is tolling. And we've made some revisions here to 2524 on page 594. And so one of the things I want to just call out based on these revisions is that non-practice while on probation now will have a cap of 2 years, which was previously not a cap that we had. So in the past, you could be told for a long, indefinitely. Like, we've seen cases where folks have been told 4 or 5 years, in some, I think in one instance, even probably 10 years. Ms. Monterrubio, our former head of enforcement, probably will have better information on that. But I just wanted to say that aloud because it is now, if this is adopted today, if a psychologist who's on probation doesn't practice based on these guidelines for 2 years, that would be also a violation of the probation itself. And so there are some circumstances in there in terms of limited health limitations or for themselves or a family member. But I wanted to name that because it does change how we currently do enforcement practices. And the other component to it too, for me, is that there have been instances in the enforcement committee, and then we've seen them come to the full board for decisions where, for a lot of great reasons, a person has moved out of the state, they're still on probation, and they've been practicing 10 years in a different state, free and clear, without issue. And we keep them on probation here in California, and they will petition for a probation termination. And this board has not terminated that probation when it comes before this body. And so for me, if we are going to take on the subject of tolling, I would be interested in also exploring is there a period, if we are going to say 2 years of non-practice constitutes violation, at what point do we also want to think of the opposite direction, which is if you've been not practicing for 10 plus years, and you've been doing so safely out of state, free and clear with no complaints, you're still here. Like, does that make sense for us to continue to have them on probation here in California? So it's been an issue of focus of mine because there's a sense of unfairness from where I sit of how we think about tolling, and this moves us in an opposite direction where it is punitive, where after 2 years, it is now a violation of the probation itself.
Mm-hmm. Thank you.
So adding to the list.
I think that's a really good point about tolling. Any other board discussion?
I just want to come back to Dr. Tate. I understand what you're saying about the psychological evaluation, that there could be some underlying pathology that would be important to consider. But is that really, I mean, my question in my mind is, does that really happen in all cases? You know, sometimes it's just an oversight, and I just wanted us to have some leeway about that. That was just my thought.
And it doesn't happen in all cases.
Right.
Yes.
Yeah, when I was reading through the updates, when I got to the part where there was a question about psychological evaluations and it had been struck through, I was concerned that it had been removed altogether, right? So when I saw that it had been moved to standard terms and conditions, that's where I questioned, well, does it have to be a standard term or condition? So I would be in favor of moving it back to like an optional term or condition, because it's not always required, right? But for it to be put as one of the standard terms means that each person would have to subject themselves to that. So I'm in agreement with you, Dr. Harpsheets. So that's my first comment. And then my second question really is, I have some grammatical, non-substantive changes that I don't want to waste anyone's time talking about. But I do think that they're important. So my question is, how can I get these changes over to the board to make these small corrections? Yeah.
If they're grammatical changes and non-substantive, when there is a motion, there's not a motion on the floor right now, but if there is a motion, you can authorize the executive director to make non-substantive changes
Okay.
before going to OAL.
Perfect. Thank you.
I also wanted to just like weigh in a little bit on the psych evaluation, and I think that the optional way that we've been doing it in the past has been really helpful, because then we put a lot of like thought into why it's being required, and sometimes we even kind of like want more, like, you know, like a follow-up or like a specific question that we want the assessing individual to assess further. You know, sometimes we would add like, you know, make sure that there's personality, you know, like a comment on, you know, any personality, you know, issues or something like that. So I think that we put a lot more we require it when needed for the cases that come in front of us. Also, I am worried that we have some individuals that have maybe some conditions that they have that might be over kind of like over, that's not really the reason why they're having the violation, but it is being highlighted, and we don't want to kind of like unfairly treat someone who has like a psychological condition or disorder that is practicing, that is like not impacting their practice, to be kind of like exposed or like or you know, kind of like have that as part of the factors involved in our evaluation of that individual. So just like my 2 cents on that. Anyway, let's open it up to public comment.
I'd like to make a motion. Go ahead.
Okay.
I have one question. Do we have data on how often the board uses or requests psychological evaluations in disciplinary actions?
This
At this point, look at me because I've been here longest.
Yeah.
So it is a standard condition. I think we've typically included it, and then in some instances, limited instances, we've waived it. If for one reason or another, we have potentially removed that, but as a standard condition, we typically haven't. I also recall that when Dr. Horn was on the board and I was serving with her, when did I become board historian? I think Dr. Horn was, and also Dr. Phillips, they were big proponents of the psych eval. I think they were pretty insistent. When we tried to waive it, they usually required us to vote on it, and it required us to outvote them in order to do that. So, which was fairly rare. So I don't have like a percentage to give you other than memories of times past.
That's very helpful. Thank you so much for your institutional knowledge.
Yeah, but anecdotally, we would sometimes hold a decision because we wanted to add a psych eval most of the time. That's kind of
Absolutely.
like what I remember from anecdotally from my own, perspective.
Yep.
Do we need a
I'm gonna
motion
make
first?
Okay. Okay. I'm going to make the motion.
Okay, Dr. Tate.
Okay.
Take us away.
You got to hang with me for this motion. Okay.
Okay.
I'd like to make a motion to approve the proposed regulatory text for section 1395.2 and the form incorporated by reference with changes discussed at this meeting. Direct staff to submit the text to the Director of the Department of Consumer Affairs and the Business, Consumer Services, and Housing Agency for review, and if no adverse comments are received, authorize the Executive Director to take all steps necessary to initiate the rulemaking process, make any non-substantive changes to the package, and set the matter for a hearing if requested. If no adverse comments are received during the 45-day comment period and no hearing is requested, authorize the executive officer to take all steps necessary to complete the rulemaking and adopt the proposed regulations at section 1395.2 and the form incorporated by reference as noticed.
I'll second. Dr. Tate, my question, the term with changes discussed at this meeting is a bit imprecise. And would it be, I don't want to change the language of the motion, but before we vote, could you please review all the changes discussed at this meeting so that it is then incorporated in our board meeting minutes for reference in any future conversations with Office of Administrative Law, or if there are any questions in the future from the public about what we did today. I just would want to make sure that those changes discussed at this meeting are incorporated in the board meeting
I
minutes.
hear you. Council, can I take public comment before adding a shift to the motion of specifics that we are discussed at this meeting? Okay.
Okay, so
Oh, I'm sorry. Yes. Yes.
So whether the psychological evaluation
Mm-hmm.
to optional or to standard conditions. So we will need to clarify that one, but the other points of clarification seems that the board was in agreement.
Okay.
There's also the tolling item that I've
Yes.
decided to throw in the mix.
And how many years, if you're going to be adding years or if you're going to take out the years.
So addition or subtraction.
It's all math. This
Yes.
is math. Yes, and I think well, we can talk more after public comment, but I can also help clarify what I'm trying to say.
okay, so moved by Dr. Tate and second by Mr. Fu, and now we're going to open it up to public comments. And again, we recommend like a 2-minute time limit for comments. And if someone has said the same thing as, if you want to say something similar to what someone said previously, to just like agree with them and add anything else that you wanted to add. Thank you.
Dr. Kusa, not a recommendation, but a hard 2 minutes, correct?
Hard 2 minutes, yeah.
Arthur Tom Horvath. I'm a psychologist specializing in addiction treatment. Thank you for your service to the public and to psychology. I encourage you to use current psychological science when you apply the uniform standards. The flexibility written into them allows you to do so. I have 2 specific recommendations. I can provide scientific references to support them. Number 1, focus on public safety, not on attempting to fix the respondent. Drug testing and worksite monitoring clearly support public safety. Treatment in groups for the respondent are relatively ineffective. If possibly losing one's career is not enough to motivate someone to change, it's unlikely that treatment in groups will be more effective. Mandated treatment is also likely to inspire resentment, which is counterproductive. When addiction treatment appears to be working, it's likely the effect of drug testing The treatment and group requirements in these cases can be so burdensome, they are also counterproductive. To reiterate, I encourage you to focus on public safety and let the respondent figure out how to be successful. You should focus on ends, not on means. Number two, although the standards use the term substance abusing, this pejorative and outdated term introduces bias into your discussions. There is a significant scientific literature on this bias in your own deliberations. You can refer to substance misuse and substance use disorder to reduce bias and to address these cases objectively. Finally, I support the letter that has been sent to you by the California Psychological Association. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Okay.
Good afternoon, Tyler Rindy with the California Psychological Association. First want to thank the board for the discussion today and also thank the board staff for compiling all of the comments that were received by our members and licensees. I know that was a tremendous amount of work to get to make it all happen in this last week. First, just want to uplift our comments that we, in our letter that we had submitted and the changes that we're requesting before the disciplinary guidelines proposed to move forward. We're requesting to have not a mandatory minimum of 5 years, which I know was highlighted by Dr. Harb-Sheets and also Dr. Tate. And having more flexibility for the board to determine what is the appropriate consequence for what is the violation and infraction. Secondly, requesting that there not be a mandatory psychological evaluation as the standard terms and conditions, to have it be optional and be left up to the board's discretion on does the infraction warrant that. Thirdly, to request that to keep the current timeframes of 90 days instead of reducing down to 30 days or even 60 days, that was referenced, for finding a billing or practice monitor or finding a psychotherapist. These can be burdensome for psychologists that are under probation to try to go and find and believe that the current 90-day standard is appropriate. And then fourth, which hasn't been referenced in the discussion today, we're requesting to incorporate the spectrum of administrative actions, which is on the website, just to incorporate reference to it, that the board has a lot more options depending on what is the violation, an educational letter, possibly a citation, and just the full kind of gamut of what the board has. And then lastly, just request to clarify what is the motion. I know you're going to get to it later, just so we can public is very aware of what you are voting on today. Thank you.
I'm sorry. Dr. Schaefer, I'm speaking as a practitioner, as a specialist in the addiction field, having worked with NIDA and NIAAA and doing research and education and training for about 45 years in the field. As many of you may know, addiction is a disorder. Any kind of addiction is a disorder that brings forth a lot of discrimination in society. I'm confident the board is not looking to do things in a direction that would be discriminatory, but just to keep that in mind. In terms of what's been stated of doing diagnostic testing or assessments, this is a very complicated picture. I've trained hundreds of professional psychologists included in how to do assessments because of the propensity of co-occurring disorders that could be erroneously diagnosed and are actually substance-induced disorders. This takes a lot of finesse to figure that out. You have to have adequate washout period to truly see what remains. One point of one study, for instance, that I was part of is looking at the propensity to diagnose antisocial personality disorder, people with addiction. But if appropriate questions are made about periods of time of sobriety or prior to the onset, the diagnosis would drop off, which we know with personality disorders would be counterintuitive to how we diagnose. But yet these kinds of complications exist. People that are diagnosed with anxiety disorder where actually it's a substance-induced anxiety disorder. And even having the compassion of understanding that 30% of alcoholics suffer from a pre-existing diagnosis of anxiety disorder. So giving a 5-year probation for someone that may need treatment for anxiety is going to not help their problem, but probably induce it. Also, all the patients, or not just patients, but psychologists as well, that suffer with chronic pain went on medication that might have an addictive property, not knowing they'd become addicted. Again, a compassion factor, I think, would be called into question. And if you're going to have assessments, to have them done, if you're going to have them done, with a protracted washout period and with someone who is highly specialized in that. What we know from research is if people stay clean and sober for 6 months, it's very good prognosis that that's going to continue. And if they reach the 2-year mark, even more so.
Dr. Schaefer.
Thank you so
Thank
much.
you.
Good afternoon. Robert Teal again. I also want to lend my support to CPA's letter, definitely in favor of the up to 5 years revision. I wanted to add a little comment on the psychological evaluations. Part of my practice is evaluating individuals that are faking good. And that is a demographic that is particularly hard to evaluate. The psychometrics of tests out there do not lend themselves to evaluating individuals that are trying to present better than they actually are. So I definitely am in favor of making a psychological evaluation not a mandatory factor in disciplinary action, as well as I would be curious to know more just in general of how helpful these psychological evaluations have been to the board in the past, because being in this industry, there's not a whole lot of tests that are super effective. The other thing is the point number 4 of CPA, incorporating a spectrum of administrative actions or into the disciplinary guidelines. Not only do I believe that this should be the case in the substance abuse or use language, but also throughout the disciplinary guidelines, adding a moderate category would eliminate anchoring effects towards pulling disciplinary actions towards the more extreme, or in some cases less extreme. I want to reiterate specificity and keeping as much power on the board to administer disciplinary actions as specifically as possible. Thank you.
I am also a psychologist licensed in California and wish to provide further elaboration on my colleagues' comments. I wish to emphasize the importance of providing and publishing definitions of minor, moderate, and major deviations from the standard of care made by licensees in the current disciplinary guidelines, as well as examples of each category. I have provided a document with suggestions for these definitions, with examples of each category in the meeting materials, labeled handout number 2. The goal of this more precise information would be to minimize subjectivity and inconsistency in judgments reached to discipline licensees, and to maximize objective conclusions drawn in the decision-making process. While the spectrum of administrative actions and disciplinary actions listed on the board's website would theoretically account for differentiating between minor and major deviations from the standard of care, their actual enforcement by the board has often not abided by such discriminations, imposing public disciplinary penalties for deviations best understood as minor. I appeal to your senses of compassion in assuming that we are all human, imperfect, and make mistakes, and that in a document of 800 plus pages of rules and regulations that all licensees are required to adhere to, errors will inevitably be made, especially in the face of a first-time offender who unintentionally misunderstands a situation or issue
And upon investigation, it is established by both the board and the licensee that no harm resulted from the minor error in judgment. Education, more than punishment, is in order. Minor missteps should not result in psychologists restricting or prematurely ending their careers. Any effort to improve effectiveness and objectivity in the discipline of psychologists can only serve to
Excuse me,
increase
your time is
protection
up.
of consumers of their services. Thank you.
Thank you.
Dr. Patricia Lindquist, San Diego psychologist. I concur with Dr. Peck's remarks about extended disciplinary actions, which contribute to two trends. First of all, the trend for psychologists to refuse to work with patients, who are very likely to be the ones who will report based on their unhappiness and angry retaliation against the therapist. The next trend is that the very neediest of the public, especially dysregulated persons, are the ones who are going to go without psychological support. So I would like to ask this question: how is the disciplinary staff reviewed in terms of their disciplinary decisions? I am especially interested in the internal review process by which the staff's decisions are adjudicated. I'm interested in having infractions be in line with punishment decisions. Thank you.
Thank you.
Janet Farrell, San Diego psychologist. I support the California Psychological Association's letter addressed to the Board of Psychology on the disciplinary guidelines. Specifically, I support CPA's request that you consider 4 critical amendments. Number 1, allowing probation terms of up to 5 years rather than a fixed minimum of 5 years. Number 2, remove psychological evaluations as a mandatory standard condition of probation. Number 3, maintain reasonable compliance deadlines, and I would suggest 90 days rather than 60. I'm 74 years old, and 90 days feels like 30, and it's just really, really fast time to try and get that in order, especially when you're making a referral. And the 4th is to incorporate reference to the spectrum of administrative actions within the disciplinary guidelines. And this is where I think the wisdom of our board should be depended upon and not restricted to having to follow rigid guidelines. You have expertise, you have wisdom, you have experience, and I think to bring that to bear and not be constricted by these rigid guidelines would be a plus. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other public comment? Hearing none. Any other board discussion?
I'm going to throw a curveball here. On the issue of what we've discussed already with the 90 days, et cetera, I think there's a general agreement on that. But on the tolling piece in particular, I don't, at least enforcement committee, seeing this, and I'm also really concerned about me crafting language on the fly and having us spend the rest of our afternoon going back and forth on tolling language. Dr. Harpsheets really doesn't care because she lives in San Diego, so she's like, let's spend the afternoon together. But I think we have folks with flights. So if I may make a suggestion that we have another amendment that we would have this sent to the enforcement committee for review of
The tolling piece?
the tolling
or-
piece,
okay.
but you can't move the entire document without it. And the enforcement, and you, Dr. Tate, would you appoint yourself to the enforcement committee so that I'm not by myself doing this?
Oh, do you need? Oh, well, that's right.
My compatriot is termed out
Oh.
and he's
I'd be
gone,
happy
gone.
to join you on the enforcement.
Okay, great.
committee.
So
Okay, I've appointed myself.
yes, because the danger of having me just do this by myself is you get really good language. But I think have the tolling piece be looked at, and then we can take a look at it in the next few weeks, like hopefully in the next month, and then it should be ready by November. And that way also we can have language to incorporate. We can get clarity today from the board members about the language that has been suggested that Dr. Harpsheet started off with, and subsequent public members have commented, and then have that language be incorporated in what is presented in November, alongside what comes out of enforcement committee comes up with tolling.
So I like that, but I was going to say council is going to have a suggestion.
Unless she withdraws the motion, right?
I can withdraw the motion, or would you?
No, you have to vote it down.
Okay.
I'm sorry. But it's okay because we can bring it back and to the next board meeting with language and direct staff to work on that number 3.
Does that mean we would not have a motion about the other aspects that have been discussed?
So we will vote down. We'll vote on the motion on the table, and it will not pass. And then we'll make another motion that we'll bring it back to November, incorporating the suggestions
Everything.
and revisions of today.
Okay.
So we'll have another document for everyone to review. Okay, so that would include the psych evaluation piece, the practice monitor, the tolling, years of probation.
Time frame 90.
Yep.
Can we also add, looking at the use of the term substance abusing licenses?
We should use
The term substance abusing is statutory language from when all DCA programs were ordered to adopt the disciplinary guidelines for substance abusing licensees. So that we can't really change that via regulation.
Okay, thank you for the clarification on that. Thank you.
Okay, so let's take a vote on the motion on the table.
With a recommendation to vote no.
Yes. Take the roll, please, Ms. Whitney.
Tate,
No.
Rogers,
No.
Masuda,
No.
Cervantes, Hardsheets,
No.
Boo,
No.
Nystrom,
No.
Riscate. No. Thank you. Motion does not pass.
That has never happened, so that was kind of fun. Okay, so here we go. Second motion. I move that the board direct staff to make additional revisions to section 1395.2 and the document incorporated by reference as discussed today, and bring the revised materials back to the board for discussion and potential approval at a future meeting.
I second.
Perfect.
The question I would have is
Do you want me to
on the tolling piece to enforcement, is that incorporated in this motion, or do we need a set, like, what is the?
I feel it's in.
Yeah, it's
Okay.
It's part of the additional
Okay,
revisions.
so let me add, oh, go ahead. It's like, can I amend the motion to include the psych evaluation discussion, tolling, practice monitor, timeframe? What am I missing? I'm missing one more.
5-year.
Probation flexibility. Of administrative actions. Did that include everything, Mr. Fu?
I thought to enforcement committee or just
No,
the
just-
tolling? Oh, in
Well,
general.
I got tolling in there, but it has
Additional
everything
revisions.
else.
Got it. Okay, great.
I'm just trying to make all the revisions in there so that we have flexibility to write it up correctly.
So does this mean what we would be bringing back to the November meeting would be the flexibility,
Yes.
the increased
Timeframe.
time frames,
Yes.
the flexibility with the psych eval?
Yes.
Okay. And then the enforcement committee and would be discussing the
Tolling,
tolling.
yes.
And then what about the spectrum of administrative action?
I added that.
What would that, but we bring back, so these are different recommendations that will come back than what we have today.
Yes. So we're going to incorporate everything we've discussed and what we've heard from the public and attempt to put it into a document that we can all read at the November meeting and
Okay.
discuss again.
Right.
Okay, so
And vote on again.
If there's any other changes, if there's any other changes at the new meeting, then we'll vote again. So it's not anything in stone right now.
okay, so we have a new motion. Any other board comments? Okay. Any other public comment on the new motion? Okay, we don't need. Okay.
So we can reopen it for public comment after that.
Okay.
But the cafe closes at 1.
Okay.
So if anybody wants to.
Okay. We'll
So
we'll resume at like
we're going to take an hour break
An hour break
for
okay.
1:30. Thank you so much.
So we'll resume at 1:30. Thank you.
From lunch, we're about to get started. Miss Whitney, can you please call the roll?
Tate,
Here.
Rogers.
Here.
Kasuga.
Here.
Cervantes. Harbsheet.
Here.
Fu.
Here.
Nystrom.
Here.
Riscate. Thank you. Quorum's
Thank-
established.
Thank you so much. And Dr. Kasuga, back to you.
All right, we'll resume with public comments for our new motion. And again, reminding the public that our comments are for 2 minutes each, and we'll let you know if your time is up. Thank you.
Thank you. I'm Dr. Bob Geffner. I'm a licensed psychologist here in California, San Diego, as well as Texas. I'm the psychologist who's been dealing with the board or had dealt with the board for 7 years, where the appellate court overturned the board and forced them to give me back my license. I'm not going to talk about that, but just to identify myself. I want to talk about 2 particular things with your operations that I've learned over time. A board's responsibility, that I assume you know, is to protect the consumer. To do that by regulating the ethics codes and regulating them with state laws and statutes. It's to protect, it's to do your due diligence. What I've learned is that for the last decade or so, there's been much more emphasis on punishment and punitive than protecting the consumer. So I have 2 specific recommendations to help go back to your original charge. One is on the enforcement committee, a public member should not be on it unless they understand and know the ethics codes. I don't think they can do a good job or be an investigator or review the information if they're not really understanding the ethics codes that we're to abide by and which you're supposed to be ruling on. That's the first comment. Second comment is the board should not be rubber stamping the enforcement committee's recommendations. I was surprised to learn that's what's been happening for decades. When somebody opposes the recommendation, in other words, somebody like anybody in this audience or myself, board members' due diligence is to at least find out why, ask questions. The least you can do is read a brief or read your own investigator's records, which were very good, as far as I could tell, and look at maybe a deposition or interviews or something specific from your own expert. That has not been happening in both my experience and in talking to numerous psychologists around the state, especially when somebody opposes what the accusation is. It doesn't take long to do that. Pardon?
30 seconds.
Oh, yeah, that's good. It doesn't take long to do that, maybe 15 minutes to half hour to get a feel for the case and then make an informed decision if you agree. Without doing that, there's no checks and balances. I'm glad to talk to anybody publicly or privately about these things in more detail, but as she just subtly hinted, my time is likely up. Thank you for your attention.
Thank you. Another public comment for the new motion?
Good afternoon again, Tyler Rindy with CPA. Just very briefly, express an appreciation for the discussion today and the new motion on the table, and look forward to seeing what you come up with in November. So thank you.
Thank you. Any other public comments? Seeing and hearing none, let's call for a vote. And if we can recite again the motion at hand.
To direct staff to make additional revisions to section 1395.2 and the document incorporated by reference as discussed today, and bring the revised materials back to the board for discussion and potential approval at a future meeting. And this would include, this is where you guys are going to help me, the psych evaluation, tolling, flexibility with the years of probation, timing of locating a practice monitor, and the list, someone had it for me.
List of spectrum of administrative actions.
Yes, list of, yep, administrative actions. Thank you. Did I include everything? Did I hit
Yes.
everything? Look, I'm looking at the CPA.
She said that.
Yeah.
I got that one. Oh, I'm sorry. Yes. Is that fair?
Okay, can we call the vote, please?
Tate,
Aye.
Rogers,
Aye.
Suga,
Aye.
Cervantes, Arbsheet,
Aye.
Fu,
Aye.
Nystrom,
Aye.
Riscate.
Aye.
Thank you. Motion passes.
All right. I think that concludes my sections.
Thank you, Dr. Kasuga. Moving on to agenda item 16, discussion and possible action on amendments to SB 775. Mr. Burke.
Thank you. So this is a new matter for the board, and the materials can be found on page 610 and 611 of the combined packet. In late July, we were contacted by the Department of Justice, specifically regarding the FBI, the federal government, are reviewing the authority that various state agencies in California have for fingerprinting. Currently, all applicants for licensure in our various categories are fingerprinted and then background checked by California Department of Justice and the FBI. What we were told at that meeting, along with our counterparts at the Board of Behavioral Sciences, was that the FBI had determined that the California Board of Psychology doesn't actually have the required explicit authority based on their audit to fingerprint certain license types. We have it for psychologists and psychological assistants, but not for some of the other categories. We always thought that we had because of the authority in, I believe, Business Professions Code 144, but that apparently is not sufficient. So what they said was that without some sort of change, we may lose the ability to have federal background checks done sometime this fall. What I did then was we drafted some language with BBS, but the language you see is only relevant to psychologists. Our licensees. DCA Legal Counsel reviewed it and said, yes, this would work. And DOJ said, yes, we think this, if this statutory change was made, it would work. This has been happening to multiple other states. It's not California being singled out. At the BARC meeting I attended earlier this week, Texas, Alabama, and Arizona have all gone through the same audit process with required legislative fixes. So what we have today is the draft language, which we've been told by DCA Legal Counsel would solve this particular issue, as well as the Department of Justice. However, as it's agendized for inclusion in SB 775, I have obviously been in communication with the Department of Consumer Affairs about this. And because this impacts multiple California agencies, they said they think that any action right now in terms of inclusion in SB 775 may be premature, and there's conversations going on at the very highest levels of state government about how to address this issue. But I was told I was welcome to try, and I thought, well, I will try. So I communicated with the Senate and Assembly Business Professions Committees, our sunset committees, and asked them if they, after the board hopefully approves the language today, it could be included. And I was told that they believe it's premature, and conversations are happening at the highest levels of state government as to how to address this issue. So it's not, that was a no, basically. But what I would ask the board to do today is to approve the language on page 610 and 611, which I believe will solve the issue. And then if there's a California-wide solution, or the FBI determines that actually our laws are sufficient, then great. But if not, I will then have a board-approved language that I can then take to the legislature, trying to find an author, maybe including it in the omnibus bill next year, were that to happen. So that's the background here. So staff recommendation is to approve the language in the meeting materials. Thank you.
Any board comment? Thoughts?
Move the item.
Thank you.
I second it.
Perfect. Thank you. Any other board comment? I'd like to open up this item for public comment. If you have a comment regarding agenda item 16, please come forward and have a seat. Thank you. Mr. Fu?
Taking the opportunity that this item is related to enforcement, and one of our goals in our strategic plan from 24 to 2028 for enforcement, under goal 4.2, is to expand licensee and consumers' understanding of the enforcement process to reduce confusion, provide better customer service, and improve relationships with stakeholders. I just want to take the opportunity to reduce confusion about the role of the Enforcement Committee. The Enforcement Committee, as set forth by the Administrative Manual, it reviews the board's disciplinary guidelines and enforcement statutes and regulations and submits recommended amendments to the full board for consideration. The Enforcement Committee does not review disciplinary cases that is submitted to the full board for review. So I just wanted to make sure that there was a clarity in the role of the Enforcement Committee, as it was suggested that the Enforcement Committee reviews individual disciplinary cases, which is incorrect.
Thank you, Mr. Fu. Any other board comment? Ms. Whitney, can you please call the roll?
Tate,
Aye.
Rogers,
Aye.
Masuga,
Aye.
Cervantes, Arbsheed,
Aye.
Fu,
Aye.
Nystrom,
Recuse.
Yes.
Riscate. Aye. Thank you. Motion passes.
Thank you. Moving on to agenda item number 17, discussion and possible action on proposed changes to the ASPPB bylaws. Mr. Burke.
Hey, thank you very much. ASPPB are updating their bylaws. They were last updated in 2013. It says in the meeting materials, California may have the opportunity to attend their annual meeting in October of this year and vote on these bylaws. However, the good news is they will be holding that meeting virtually, the business portion of the annual meeting. So we'll be able to vote on the bylaws, whether or not out-of-state travel is approved. In the materials, you have a copy of the current bylaws dating from 2013 and the updated bylaws. We also have prepared a brief comparison, just so to hopefully guide. And in terms of most of the changes are pretty insubstantial, but Ms. Mancia, you have a couple of highlights you'd like to highlight before the board considers which way California should vote. Thank you.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Burke. There's no significant changes to the ASPPB bylaws. However, we do just want to highlight a few so that the board may consider. Some highlights, so under, for example, membership, there is a strengthening in dues for enforcement and outlines. So, for example, automatic termination for non-payment. Under jurisdiction resolutions, In the past, for the 2013 bylaws, there was an explicit limitation related to 501c6 status, antitrust. However, now in the new bylaws, there's no direct mention of the 501c6 antitrust compliance. So that's just something, for example, that was removed in the new 2013, in the new drafted bylaws. There's a separation of officers and board of directors or board members. There's a clearly outline of the responsibilities and quorum and meeting schedule, such as 4 meetings per year, two in person, have to be in person. There is an authorization of the board, for example, for committees, under committees, the board has a authorization now to create and dissolve committees without listing them in the bylaws. There is a new section called policy. This grants the board the authority to adopt, amend, or suspend policies. And there's also a new section called dissolution that was not previously listed in the 2013 bylaws. And this is the process for the board to propose a dissolution plan and requires 3/4 vote for adoption. Any questions?
Any comments, questions from the board?
The board staff does recommend that the board review the bylaws to determine if there's any amendments, and then the board delegate to the executive director the authority to vote at the ASPPB annual meeting.
Thank you. Any comments or a motion from the board? Thank you, Dr. Herbsheet.
I second.
And Dr. Rogers. Any other comments? Any public comment on agenda item number 18? Please come forward and have a seat. Oh, I'm sorry, 17. I lied.
Hi, this is Araceli Lopez Arenas again. I'm not, as a public member, I don't understand.
Microphone is not on.
Oh, is it? Okay, sorry. Araceli Lopez Arenas again. As a public member, I don't know what this is, so could the board explain the role? I know that we're members of ASPPB, but I'm not really understanding what all this is, so could you help clarify? Thank you.
ASPPB as an entity is, in terms of their own sort of internal governance, have rules and procedures. And these are the bylaws that sort of govern that, how to call a meeting, how often they can meet, things like that. What happens if a jurisdiction doesn't pay its dues, something like that. That's what this is. Does that answer your question? Okay.
Any other public comment on this item? Oh. Okay, back to the board. Any other comment before? Do we need to amend that? Oh. Okay, and there is a motion on the floor, but I just want to clarify that this is a motion to adopt the updated bylaws and also allow the executive director to vote at the annual meeting. Dr. Herbsheet made the motion and Dr. Rogers second. And please call the roll, Ms. Whitney.
Tate,
Aye.
Rogers,
Aye.
Kasuga,
Aye.
Cervantes, Herbsheet,
Aye.
Fu,
Aye.
Nystrom,
Aye.
Ruscate.
Aye.
Thank you. Motion passes.
Thank you. And I know I stated this before, but I will repeat it again. Agenda item 18 was a placeholder. We were waiting for the ASPPB survey to come out, which it has not. So there was nothing to discuss at that item. So I'm moving on to agenda item number 19. This is discussion and recommendation for agenda items for future board meetings. The board may not discuss or take action on any matter raised during this public comment section, except to decide whether to place the matter on the agenda of a future meeting. Let's open up public comment first. Any suggestions for a future board meeting, please come forward and have a seat. Okay, coming back to the board, any suggestions for the future? Mr. Fu?
Yes, I just wanted to lift up my comment earlier about the inclusion of the Office of Professional Examination Services at a future board meeting, recognizing that they will be helpful in some of these ongoing conversations with regard to the EPPP integrated exam.
Perfect, thank you. Do you have that, Mr. Burke? Go ahead, Doc.
I want to suggest our ongoing mindfulness activity led by the wonderful Dr. Rogers. Also, I wanted to add to the agenda in our future meetings a discussion or revisiting SIPACT, given some of the changes with regards their acceptance of non-APA regionally accredited schools. So if we can have that at a future board meeting, doesn't necessarily have to be the next one. Thank you.
Thank you. It looks like our November agenda is going to be full. Yeah, it's already packed. Oh, Mr. Fu, go ahead.
Sorry, clarification. I recognize that OPES is based in Sacramento, so it might be easier in our February meeting when we are doing it in Sacramento to have them there, and that would also, I think, demonstrate our practice of stewardship of state resources during these difficult budgetary times.
Absolutely. Any other suggestions? Perfect. Thank you. Before we adjourn for today, Mr. Oh, I'm so sorry. Oh, okay. I'm sorry. I did public comment first on this item. Go ahead.
Just right here.
Yeah.
Okay. I just wanted to reiterate, I don't know if this needs to be said again, but Mr. Fu had asked Jonathan Burke to speak with the Texas chief officer, and I don't know if that got formally put on the agenda or not. He asked him to bring it up at the next meeting. So I would like to make sure that gets on the agenda.
Yes, in my request to Mr. Burke earlier, I asked that he be in contact with his colleague there and to include for the agenda as a item so that we can learn what he discussed and what communication entailed.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Hi, I'm Denise Grundlin, and I just wanted to add, I think, to Mr. Fu's idea about probation potentially getting affected by tolling if you beyond 2 years. I just wanted to add to that idea about maternity leave, and so psychologists would be potentially penalized for tolling if they were on probation or just toll. I'm not sure if that applies tolling in general, but just tolling to be a mom, and then that could affect them in a negative way. So I think that's important. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hi again. In using my privilege as a licensed psychologist and thinking about our non-licensed clinicians, I guess I'll put it on the table in terms of consideration on the 6-year limit. I have worked with several clinicians that have reached that limit, and part of it is they are multiple test takers, they are on maternity leave, or they have their caregivers. And so if there could be some special consideration in either pausing that time limit or really considering, I know that I've helped people advocate because that's their livelihood. And if they can't work, then they can't pay for the license materials, and then they can't pay for the exam. And some of them are single, some of them are, don't have the support system of a partner. Some of them have children. At the time, it was just me and my dog. But even then, right? And so using this privilege and speaking for them, because many of them are not here because they're afraid to speak. And so I'd like to advocate on their behalf in that regard. So thank you.
Thank you. Any other public comment at this time? Any other board comment? Any suggestions for the future? Thank you. Mr. Polk, please let us know about our CPD credit for today.
Thank you for attending the board meeting today. For attending the full duration of today's meeting, 6 hours under CPD category number 1, attendance at a California Board of Psychology meeting will be credited. For your CPD records, please notate today's date as August 22nd, 2025, the name of today's meeting, which is the board meeting, and 6 hours for your records. Again, please maintain this record as certificates of attendance will not be provided after the meeting. Again, since today's meeting was designated as an in-person meeting, CPD credit will not be given for viewing the meeting through the WebEx, as the WebEx was for streaming purposes only and there was no option to interact during the public comment periods. Thank you again for attending the board meeting, and please sign out on the attendance sheet before leaving today's meeting. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Polk. Thank you to everyone in attendance, and this meeting is adjourned.